Chapter 575. Nye Tian and Lu Liangkai attacked at the same time. A sword shadow and several golden abacus beads attacked Wu Feng. Wu Feng's eyes trembled. He could sense that the two of them were very strong. He could only split his attention to defend himself. The 5 poison chi formed a green barrier around him. Boom! Bang! 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 Nye Tian and Lu Liangcai's attacks landed simultaneously. However, they were actually unable to cause any damage to the 5 poison shield. The strength of a martial artist at the 3rd tier of the Divine Wheel realm was indeed formidable. Wu Feng lost a superb opportunity to kill Hui Yuan and was angered to the point his face turned purple as he roared furiously. "A bunch of trash. What are you still standing there for? Slaughter them." In truth, Hui Yuan and Wu Feng's strength was on par, but the former was too conservative and was suppressed by a single move from the latter. It was impossible for him to turn the tables. If it weren't for Nye Tian and Lu Liangcai's intervention, Hui Yuan would have been seriously injured, even if he didn't die. "Thank you both." Hui Yuan nodded with a slightly embarrassed expression. Nye Tian ignored him and said to Lu Liangcai, "President Lu, go and help Old Hua. I'll deal with the others." "All right." Lu Liangcai agreed. Even though he was only at the 1st tier of the Divine Wheel, he could still cooperate with Hui Yuan and severely injure Wu Feng at a critical moment. "Sir, let me help you." Qiu Shan took a step forward and arrived at Nye Tian's side. The two of them stood back to back. Facing more than a dozen true Essence Stage to true Essence Stage martial artists, they showed no fear. There was no need to mention Nye Tian's battle prowess. Qiu Shan had the saber dragon arm. Even if he was only at the 1st true element stage, he did not fear a 5th true element stage martial artist. "Kill them." One of them roared as he made his move. Waves of Yuan Qi gushed out as countless black vines appeared, resembling long snakes. They actually condensed into a gigantic sharp claw in the air, grabbing down from the sky. The surrounding space tightened, and Nye Tian and Qiu Shan were trapped under the sharp claw, unable to retreat. The one who attacked was a powerhouse at the 6th level of true element, and his Yuan spirit was a wood spirit. It was extremely strange. Boom! Just as the sharp claws were about to claw down, Qiu Shan suddenly stretched out his left arm, and an explosion immediately erupted in the air. Qiu Shan's left arm immediately swelled up. His clothes were completely torn to shreds, and his entire arm was immediately exposed. However, what was exposed was not skin, but a layer of fine scales. The scales were black and shiny, and emitted an explosive feeling of power. The 5 fingers had also turned into sharp bone claws, emitting a cold glint. Instantly, waves of powerful dragon energy surged out, filling the surrounding space with a violent aura. On Qiu Shan's body, the blade dragon arm was even more powerful than on Long Sky's body. Bang! Qiu Shan didn't even look at it. His huge fist directly punched out, and the clear and intense sound of a dragon's roar rang in the air. With a single punch, the rattan claw in the air was smashed into pieces and fell to the ground. "Ah, my hand!" Then a miserable howl like that of a pig being slaughtered rang out. The attacker's entire arm was shattered, and half of his body was dripping with blood. The blade dragon arm was the purest form of power. Colliding with this kind of power head-on was tantamount to courting death. This person is so strong. Seeing this scene, the others couldn't hide the horror in their eyes. "Kill them all," Nye Tianling shouted, and his eyes were filled with the most extreme killing intent. "Okay," Qiu Shan replied. The blade dragon arm streaked across the air, and a shadow of an azure dragon roared out and directly smashed another true element stage 5 warrior into meat paste. Seeing this scene, Nye Tian couldn't help but be stunned. He didn't expect Qiu Shan to be so strong. The blade dragon arm had 9 azure dragon seals, and when it was on Long Sky's body, it had already opened 2 azure dragon seals. On Qiu Shan's body, the blade dragon arm seemed to be about to open the 3rd azure dragon seal. Once it was opened, Qiu Shan's strength would inevitably increase by several times. Nie Tian didn't know that during the period when he was away from Tianluo City, Qiu Shan had an extremely strong sparring partner, and that was the ancient dragon soul, Di Shi. Even if Di Shi didn't drill out of the ground, he could still fight with Qiu Shan. Just by relying on the dragon energy that escaped from the ground, he could make Qiu Shan unable to resist. Moreover, Di Shi's dragon energy had greatly increased the strength of the blade dragon arm, which also gave Qiu Shan a deeper understanding of the strength of the blade dragon arm. Nie Tian estimated that even with his current strength, it would be very difficult to defeat Qiu Shan. If Qiu Shan opened the third Azure Dragon Seal and awakened the power of 100 dragons in his body, he would be able to fight with a Spirit Wheel Realm warrior just by relying on the Blade Dragon arm. The Blade Dragon arm, one of the 4 profound arms, is really powerful. Nie Tian smiled lightly, very satisfied. Nie Tian and Qiu Shan worked together very well, and almost killed one person with one move. After more than 10 moves, the dozens of warriors were all lying on the ground. The people of the Barren Sky City were stunned. Their mouths were wide open, but no sound came out. The strength of Nie Tian and Qiu Shan was too strange, especially Qiu Shan's Blade Dragon arm, which was simply invincible. In front of the Blade Dragon arm, those warriors above LV5 of True Elemental Realm were completely like paper in front of it. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, who would dare to believe that a warrior at LV1 of True Elemental Realm and a warrior at LV3 of True Elemental Realm could actually kill dozens of warriors above LV5 of True Elemental Realm in the blink of an eye? At this moment, a scream came from the other side. Lu Yansai's figure flew out, and blood spurted out in the air. Nie Tian's figure flashed, and he caught him. Nie Tian, City Lord, Lu Yansai's face darkened. There was actually a bloody hole in his chest, and thick black blood flowed out of the bloody hole. Moreover, the bloody hole was constantly expanding, and it was about to swallow his entire body. Don't speak. Nie Tian's face was gloomy. Several sword intents gushed out and sealed the meridians around Lu Yansai's bloody hole, trying to stop the bleeding. However, the wound was expanding very quickly. In the blink of an eye, Lu Yansai's entire body turned into a pool of pus and blood. A warrior at the Spirit Wheel Realm had died just like that. Nie Tian was stunned for a moment. Anger rose in his eyes, and his body began to tremble. The 5-poison Qi was too terrifying. As long as it seeped into a warrior's body, it could swallow the entire body in the blink of an eye. Wu Feng turned around and saw that all his subordinates had turned into corpses. His eyes slightly narrowed, and he scolded coldly, "A bunch of trash." He turned around to look at Hui Yuan and smiled coldly. "Old man, if I remember correctly, you are more than 600 years old. To be able to live for so long, God has not been unkind to you. Rest in peace. If I don't kill this evil disciple, how can I rest in peace?" Hui Yuan's breathing became rapid, and the white halo around his body weakened significantly. Even his breathing became unstable. Wu Feng was right. He was already more than 600 years old, and this was already the limit for a warrior at the Spirit Wheel Realm. Even if he didn't die now, he wouldn't live for long. Evil disciple, even if I die today, I must get rid of you. Thinking of this, Hui Yuan's expression suddenly changed. His eyes instantly became determined, and blood suddenly spurted out of his body. The aura around his body began to skyrocket. Chapter 576. Hui Yuan burned all the blood in his body, causing his aura to soar. The surrounding space was filled with a strong smell of blood. He knew that he did not have much time left. As long as he could kill his evil disciple, he was willing to die. He wanted to perish together with Wu Feng, but Wu Feng obviously would not agree. "Old man, do you really think you can perish together with me? Let me tell you, you are dreaming." Wu Feng laughed maniacally. The corners of his mouth curled into a cold and strange smile. He knew that Hui Yuan's strongest attack would be coming next. As long as he could block this attack, he would be able to survive. Elder Hui. Nie Tian looked at Hui Yuan. The blood-red energy that entered his eyes was like a burning flame. This moved him slightly. However, it was too late to stop Hui Yuan. He could only watch as Hui Yuan unleashed his final attack. Wu Feng, you're the biggest mistake I made in my life. Today, I will use my life to make up for this mistake. Hui Yuan's figure slowly rose, and his aura soared. The space of his divine wheel extended hundreds of meters away. Everyone could feel a huge force spreading out. Hui Yuan was once the chief of the Alchemist Guild. He had a glorious life and stood at the peak of the 3,000 small worlds. He was respected by thousands. However, he had made an unforgivable mistake. He had taken in a demon-like evil disciple. He wanted to make up for this mistake in the last moment of his life. Wu Feng felt Hui Yuan's violent aura. His heart trembled slightly. Then a vicious look flashed in his eyes. He said coldly, "Old man, you forced me to do this." As his extremely cold voice fell, a small coffin appeared in Wu Feng's hand. The other 5 poison blood infant, Nie Tian and Xiu Shan, were stunned at the same time. They did not expect that the 5 poison blood infant that had escaped was actually in Wu Feng's hands. In order to refine the 5 poison blood infant, I spent more than 10 years. These 2 5 poison blood infants are my life's work. Using them on an old man like you is really too good for you. Wu Feng shouted and directly opened the coffin. With a clear cry, the 5 poison blood infant leaped out of the coffin and pounced towards Wu Feng like a nimble spirit beast. Wu Feng's reaction was extremely fast. His withered hand was like a ghost claw, and he directly grabbed the 5 poison blood infant. "My little darling, behave yourself," he said Wu Feng's hand. After saying that, he suddenly exerted force in his hand and released a strange green blood mist. The mist condensed into sinister tentacles that pierced directly into the 5 poison blood infant's body. The 5 poison's blood infant let out a shrill cry as it struggled in pain with its limbs, but to no avail. In the blink of an eye, the 5 poison blood infant turned into a shriveled corpse. Wu Feng threw it away, and it disappeared into the vast yellow sand. Wu Feng had sacrificed the lives of 300,000 infants to refine 2 5 poison blood infants, and now he was actually throwing them away like trash. This person was truly devoid of conscience. He was worse than an animal. Shun, he absorbed. He absorbed of the infant. And of Wu. He has absorbed. Come on, old man. Wu Feng roared. His body shook, and green energy surged out. His aura was much stronger than before. 5th tier of the divine wheel realm. Seeing this, Nie Tian could not help but gasp. After absorbing the power of the 5 poison blood infant, Wu Feng's strength had actually skyrocketed from the 3rd tier of the divine wheel to the 5th tier. Hui Yuan also noticed this. His pupils shrank, and his face was filled with deep worry. However, he had no way out now. He could only fight for the last time. The blood chi on his body swelled to the extreme. Circles of white halos filled the space of the divine wheel. They were extremely holy, but at the same time, they also emitted a bloody aura. Wu Feng's aura also soared to the extreme. The green 5 poison aura enveloped the space of hundreds of meters. Both of them were prepared to fight to the death. Divine essence, heavenly punishment. Hui Yuan let out a furious roar as the aura around his body surged out. A tremendous force descended with a loud rumble, causing all the sand in the surroundings to be blown away by the impact. This was his last attack, and he had gathered all the blood chi in his body. Good move. Wu Feng was not afraid at all. He laughed wildly, and his face became hideous. The 5 poison aura on his body instantly condensed in the air. A ghostly green claw appeared, and it pressed down on Hui Yuan. Boom! The collision of the ultimate moves was earth-shattering. The surrounding space shook, and an extremely strong wave of air spread out from the center of the collision in all directions. Everyone who was hit by the wave of air could not withstand it and retreated one after another. Bang! Bang! 2 muffled sounds were heard almost at the same time. Hui Yuan and Wu Feng's figures were blasted away at the same time. This is the moment. At this moment, a murderous voice suddenly sounded. A figure actually dashed out against the boundless wave of air. Qiu Shan could clearly see that the figure in the air was Nie Tian. His pupils shrank, and he shouted, "Sir!" Hui Yuan and Wu Feng were both strong practitioners of the divine wheel realm. Even the residual power of their attacks could easily kill a warrior of the true energy realm. Nie Tian dashed out at this moment. No one knew what he was doing. Heaven and earth reverse slash. In midair, Nie Tian thrust his sword in the direction that Wu Feng had been sent flying. Wild sword intent instantly blossomed, and an incomparably sharp and domineering sword intent whizzed out. Wu Feng was in the air. The sudden appearance of the figure made his heart tremble violently. Immediately after, a cold smile appeared on his face. "Brat, you are courting death." Swoosh! Swoosh! 2 green rays shot out from Wu Feng's figure. They were the evilest 5 poison aura. Once it entered a warrior's body, it would devour the entire body in the blink of an eye. Previously, Lu Liangkai died because of the 5 poison aura. However, Nie Tian did not care about it and directly dashed towards the 5 poison aura. The sword intent was sharp, and the sword's shadow shocked the sky. An extremely overbearing sword intent was released in an instant. Together with the power of the 4th rank heaven and earth reverse slash, it was enough to threaten a divine wheel realm practitioner. Most importantly, Wu Feng had no means of defense at this moment. Seeing Nie Tian rushing towards him, Wu Feng's eyes trembled violently. Did this brat not want his life anymore? Left with no choice, Wu Feng forcefully activated his Yuan meridians and released the last of the 5 poison aura, forming a green barrier around his body. Slash! Nie Tian's eyes were filled with determination. With a single slash, he spared no effort as a white sword ray shot out. "Ah!" Wu Feng screamed in agony. His body was directly struck by the gigantic sword ray, and he was directly flung through the air like a balloon. Nie Tian's silhouette landed on the ground. He stared at the sky, only to see a sky full of sand and not Wu Feng's silhouette. He ruthlessly sighed. Damn it, he escaped. Earlier, he had unleashed a 4th rank astral soul. Initially, he wanted to take advantage of Wu Feng's weakened state to kill him. Who would have thought that Wu Feng would still be able to escape? Wu Feng first clashed with Hui Yuanzhong, and after that, he was heavily injured by Nie Tian. Even if he didn't die, he would at least lose a layer of his skin. Pooh! Nie Tian felt a burning pain in his chest, after which he coughed out a mouthful of black blood. Chapter 577. In order to kill Wu Feng, Nie Tian had forcefully charged forward and was hit by the 5 poison chi. There were 2 black wounds on his chest. The 5 poison chi was extremely poisonous and had a strong corrosive effect on flesh and blood. Nie Tian looked down and saw that the wounds on his chest had already split open at a speed visible to the naked eye. Blood gushed out like a fountain, creating a bloody scene. Mr. Qiu Shan came to Nie Tian's side and couldn't help but panic when he saw this scene. Nie Tian frowned slightly. A wave of sword intent surged out of his body and directly sealed the wound on his chest. At the same time, the 9 dragon veins in his body revolved crazily. Pure dragon chi surged out and finally suppressed the 5 poison chi. "I'm fine," Nie Tian raised his head and said. He already knew that dragon chi could suppress the 5 poison chi. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to take Wu Feng's attack head-on. He had the 9-star dragon vein physique, so the 2 wounds are nothing to him. He could completely recover in half a day. Nie Tian was fine, but Hui Yuan wasn't so lucky. His face was as pale as paper. All the blood in his body was uncontrollably dissipating. He was on the brink of death. Elder Hua. Nie Tian walked over and supported Hui Yuan. "Yeah, Nie Tian." Hui Yuan's body was weak and his eyelids were heavy. He could only squint slightly. His expression was extremely pained. Even though he had burned his blood for the final attack, he still hadn't been able to kill his disciple. He was unwilling to accept this. "Elder Hua, don't worry. I will definitely kill Wu Feng for you." Nie Tian naturally knew what Hui Yuan wanted to say and immediately promised. Although Hui Yuan couldn't absolve himself from the blame for Wu Feng refining the 5 poison blood infant. He wasn't the one who did it. Wu Feng was the main culprit, and he had already used his life to make up for his mistake. Of course, Tian couldn't say anything else. Wu Feng must be killed, not only for Hui Yuan, but also for the innocent babies who had died tragically. Tian, help me give this ring to Meng Fanshun. Hui Yuan used all his strength to take out a ring and hand it over to Tian. Tian took the ring and glanced at it. He only saw a lifelike little dragon engraved on it, but didn't pay much attention to it. He put away and promised, "Elder Hua, don't worry. I will definitely hand this ring to Master Meng Fanshun." When Hui Yuan heard Tian's words, the last trace of light in his eyes dissipated and his breathing slowed. After a while, he passed away. The former president of the Alchemist Guild eventually died in the hands of his own disciple. Such a scene made one sigh. Shopkeeper. Everyone in the desolate Heaven City wailed and knelt on the ground, unwilling to get up. To them, Hui Yuan was like a savior. Not only did Barren Sky City give them a place to live, but also gave them the warmth of a home. Tian handed Hui Yuan's body to the people of Barren Heaven City, but he sighed in his heart. Hui Yuan was already a 3rd-tier divine wheel warrior and a 7th-tier alchemist. Even so, he couldn't escape the heavenly law. He was already more than 600 years old, which was the limit of a divine wheel warrior's lifespan. Even if he didn't die at the hands of Wu Feng today, he didn't have much time left. The cultivation of a warrior was to go against the heavens. On this path, there were only a few who could persevere to the end. Even a peak heavenly emperor warrior could only live for 1,000 years at most. Once the time was up, even if you were an emperor that everyone looked up to, you could only accept your fate and turn into dust. This was the reason why it was difficult to go against the heavenly law. Only by breaking through the heavenly emperor realm and ascending to the godly state could a warrior fight against the heavenly law. This was the reason why so many martial artists spent their entire lives chasing after that illusory god realm. Once they ascended to the godly state, they would become a true god. They could live as long as the heavens and the earth, compete with the sun and the moon, and break the heavens with a single hand. Who wouldn't want to? Unfortunately, since ancient times, there were hundreds of millions of warriors, but no one could see through the secrets of the godly state. In the end, the godly state became an illusory legend. After returning to the tavern, Tian went directly to the room where Mo Tai and the others were. "Tian, are you okay?" Mo Rushi asked worriedly when she saw the blood on Tian's body and his pale face. It was obvious that he had just gone through a fierce battle. "I'm fine." Tian shook his head slightly. His expression became solemn as he said, "We don't have time. We have to leave this place immediately." "Leave now?" Aoki Eureka's beautiful eyes trembled. She glanced at Mo Tai and Ding Yifun and said worriedly, "They haven't recovered yet. I'm afraid it's not appropriate to leave now." As Aoki Eureka spoke, she looked at Tian. The next moment, she suddenly realized that one person was missing. Her face darkened, and she asked in shock, "Where's President Liu?" "He's dead." Tian's eyes trembled. He said solemnly, "We have to leave now. Otherwise, it'll be too late." Wu Feng had escaped. Who knew how many assassins from the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion were behind him? If they continued to stay in the desolate Sky City, not only would Tian and the others die, but the people of the desolate Sky City would also suffer because of them. Aoki Eureka's body swayed. Her expression was blank. She couldn't accept the fact that Lu Yangkai was dead. "Sister, let's listen to the arrangements of the Tian City Lord. Let's leave this place." Ding Yifun suddenly stood up. His face was extremely pale, and it seemed like he would collapse at any moment. Mo Tai also forced himself to stand up. They knew that Tian and the others must have encountered a powerful enemy. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in such a hurry to leave. "All right." Aoki Eureka calmed down and nodded. Lu Yangkai was already dead. If something happened to her and Ding Yifun, the Diyuan Trade Association would suffer a great loss. A moment later, Autumn Mountain got a carriage. Mo Tai, Ding Yifun, and the others boarded the carriage. The carriage left the desolate Sky City and set off for the peaceful city. The journey was very smooth. They didn't encounter any enemies. Half a day later, the carriage arrived outside the peaceful city. Tian City Lord, as long as we enter the peaceful city, we'll be safe. Aoki Eureka looked at the peaceful city ahead and couldn't help but feel excited. However, Tian suddenly waved his hand and signaled for Autumn Mountain to stop the carriage. He looked at the sky and faintly sensed a soaring, murderous aura that was about to burst out. At this moment, the ground suddenly shook. It was as if hundreds and thousands of fierce horses were galloping on the ground. What's going on? Aoki Eureka pulled open the curtains. Her beautiful eyes trembled, and her beautiful face turned pale. Rumbling sounds of iron hooves could be heard from the city gate in the distance. Countless figures rushed out. Tian's eyebrows furrowed slightly. In his eyes, hundreds of armored warriors charged out. Surprisingly, they weren't riding horses, but ferocious-looking wolf mounts. These people all had a murderous aura around them. Their expressions were sinister, and their bodies emitted a cold aura. The wolves they were riding bared their fangs and breathed heavily. They seemed violent and ferocious. It's the people of the Transformation God sect. Aoki Eureka cried out in shock. Her face turned pale. Chapter 578. Tian saw Wu Feng's figure and thought, sure enough, the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion and the Transforming God sect are related. Tian killed the number 1 disciple of the Transforming God sect, Ning Wudao. It was reasonable for the latter to seek revenge. However, the timing was too perfect. As soon as Tian's group arrived in the city, the people of the Transforming God sect came out. They were obviously waiting for them. Only Wu Feng knew that Tian's group returned from the Barren Heaven City. It was obvious that the latter leaked the news to the Transforming God sect. Now that Wu Feng was also among the people of the Transforming God sect, it undoubtedly meant that he had a special relationship with the Transforming God sect. Otherwise, the people of the Transforming God sect wouldn't believe him. Tian guessed that the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion and the Transforming God sect must be in cahoots. Qiushan didn't know the Transforming God sect leader, Dongfang Yu, but the latter destroyed his Yuan Meridian. This clearly didn't make sense. Thinking of Qiushan's identity and the grudge between Yi Linyun and the pavilion leader of the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion, Tian thought that the pavilion leader found out about Qiushan's identity and asked Dongfang Yu to destroy his Yuan Meridian. The reason why the pavilion leader didn't kill Qiushan was to let him live in pain. This was the same method he used on Yi Linyun. He only left a demon-sealing curse on the latter, but didn't kill the latter. This person's methods showed how vicious his heart was. Tian believed that Dongfang Yu wasn't the Transforming God sect leader back then. The reason why she could become the sect leader was because of the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion's pavilion leader. It was just like how the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion pushed Diao Zhengde to the position of a red-clothed elder. The same method was used on different people. What was the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion trying to do by nurturing forces everywhere? It seemed that the pavilion leader was playing a big game of chess. This gave Tian a bad feeling. Surround them. The leader of the God Transformation Sects group had an extremely cold expression on his face. His eyes were as fierce as an eagle's. With a cold shout, countless wolf warriors immediately rushed out and surrounded Tian's carriage, making it so that not even a drop of water could escape. "Oh no!" Aokiki Lily shrieked and said to Tian, "That man is Liang Ying, the Hall Master of the White Tiger Hall of the God Transformation Sect. This time, the entire White Tiger Hall is here to avenge Ning Wudao." "Liang Ying," Tian murmured as he stared at the person in the distance. As expected, his gaze was as sharp as an eagle's. Liang Ying's strength was at the first tier of the divine wheel, which made Tian slightly worried. However, he was more worried about the people around him. If they swarmed him, it would be difficult for him to guarantee the safety of Mo Tai and Ding Yifun, even if he was very powerful. There were around 700 or 800 people around him, all of them true element boundary cultivators. Their auras were like thunder, and their killing intent was obvious. Nietion's cold gaze locked onto Wu Feng. Wu Feng was heavily injured and extremely weak. Although Nietion's sword strike had failed to kill him, it had severely injured him. He would need at least half a month to recover from it. Qiu Shan, don't leave the carriage. Protect the others. Nietion transmitted his voice to Qiu Shan, who nodded heavily. Although Qiu Shan's current strength was only at the first tier of the primordial element boundary, he had the saber dragon arm. As long as the opponent was not a 9th tier primordial element boundary cultivator, they would not be a threat to him. What is this brat trying to do? Wu Feng was targeted by Nietion and immediately felt a prickling sensation on his back. He actually felt like a little rabbit being targeted by a vicious wolf, which sent a chill down his spine. Hall Master Liang, quickly kill this brat. Wu Feng whispered to Liang Ying beside him. Okay. Liang Ying nodded and immediately roared, kill them. Yes. A thunderous roar rang out in unison. Many mount wolves immediately charged towards the carriage. However, the moment they charged out, an unparalleled sword intent of the saber, Dao suddenly erupted, causing everyone's heart to tremble. Boom! An astonishing 100-meter-long sword shadow slashed down like a mountain or the sea, its aura surging. Screams rang out one after another, and countless people were sent flying. Those who were directly hit by the sword shadow were instantly crushed into a pile of meat paste. The scene was extremely chaotic, and blood splattered everywhere. This scene caused everyone's heart to tremble violently, and their eyes were filled with deep fear. Liang Ying's eyes darkened, and he frowned. He did not expect Nietion to be so strong. He was indeed worthy of being the person who killed Ning Wudao. However, Nietion's figure moved at this moment. A fierce and murderous look flashed across his face, and a tyrannical sword pierced out. The splendor of the sword was abnormally dazzling, and at the same time, it contained a strong, killing intent. Reckless, Liang Ying did not expect Nietion to take the initiative to attack him. The corner of his mouth twitched, revealing a trace of a cold smile. He opened up the spirit wheel space, and a tyrannical aura spread out 100 meters. Nietion immediately felt a tyrannical resistance in the invisible space, causing his speed to suddenly slow down. Brat, you are merely at the 3rd tier of the primordial element boundary, and you want to fight against a spirit wheel realm warrior? You are courting death. Liang Ying smiled coldly. He struck out with his palm, and several dazzling claws appeared in the air, sweeping towards Nietion. The claws were like the wind and lightning, and they were extremely fast. If one was hit head-on, even a body of steel would be broken into two. At this moment, a pair of wings formed by sword shadows suddenly appeared behind Nietion's back. It was the proud sword wings. Whoosh! With a flap of the wings, Nietion's figure suddenly changed direction, and he whizzed towards Wu Feng on the other side. Liang Ying's eyes trembled, and he immediately understood that Nietion was making a feint. The sword attack just now was just to divert his attention, and Wu Feng was his real target. This was what Nietion was thinking. As long as he could capture Wu Feng alive, he was not afraid that Liang Ying would not let them go. All Leader Liang, save me. Wu Feng finally reacted, and he screamed in fear. His expression was stiff from fear. Brat, don't even think about succeeding. Liang Ying smiled cold, and then he let out a strange cry. Hula! Awu! Above the horizon, a huge figure suddenly appeared, and a sharp cry was heard. It was actually a lion-headed bald eagle that was dozens of meters long. Swish! Swish! The lion-headed bald eagle descended from the sky at extremely fast speed. Its sharp claws swiped down, and two dazzling white rays fell. Nietion felt the sharp force in the air, and he had no choice but to draw his sword. The sword intent in his body soared into the sky, and the terrifying sword shadow collided with the sharp claws in the air, producing a sound of metal clashing. Nietion felt a huge force pressing down on him, and he quickly retreated. However, he was still cut by the sharp claws, and a horrifying wound appeared on one of his arms. What a powerful spirit beast! And yet Tian stabilized his body and immediately returned to the carriage. He glanced at the wound on his arm, but he did not care. The strength of this stone-bald eagle was too strong, and it was definitely comparable to a spirit will expert. Just a little bit more, and yet Tian would have been able to control Wu Feng. Unfortunately, his plan was ruined by this bald beast. Tian. At this moment, Mo Rushi came out of the carriage, and she couldn't help but feel distressed when she saw Tian's hand. "I'm fine." Tian glanced at the beautiful girl, forced a smile, and said, "Rushi, don't worry. I will definitely get you out of here." Liang Ying suddenly saw Mo Rushi, and his eyes turned red, revealing a crazy passion. He chuckled and said loudly, "Brat, I didn't expect you to have such a beautiful girl by your side. Unfortunately, you don't have the fortune to enjoy it. Let this hall leader enjoy it for you." Chapter 579. Hearing Liang Ying profane Mo Rushi, Tian's killing intent surged all over his body. Mo Rushi was his reverse scale. Anyone who touched it would die. Ning Wudao died because of it, and now Liang Ying would suffer the same fate. His gaze swept across everyone in a fierce and domineering manner. When everyone saw Mo Rushi, their eyes froze at the same time. When they saw the cold Tian, their hearts trembled. "Qiushan, no matter what happens, don't leave the carriage," Tian said to Qiushan in a deep voice. Without waiting for the latter to answer, his figure turned into a stream of light and flickered. At this moment, Tian was like a raging sharp sword. The sword intent all over his body was almost roaring, and the sword light flashed in the void. Every strike of the sword represented the end of several lives. Although the people of the God Transformation sect were strong, they were just live targets in front of Tian. They didn't even dare to move. Under Tian's attack, the encirclement formed by the people of the God Transformation sect began to shake and was about to be broken. "Everyone listen up. Charge forward together. Those who retreat will be killed without mercy." Liang Ying shouted coldly when he saw that his subordinates were afraid to move forward. It would be too shameful if all the people of the White Tiger Hall couldn't even take down a young man. The hearts of the people of the God Transformation sect trembled. Their bodies surged with killing intent. They made up their minds and rushed towards Tian almost at the same time. Many people also attacked Qiushan and the others on the carriage. "You're courting death." Seeing this scene, Tian became anxious, and his sword intent became even more fierce. What he was most afraid of was these people attacking at the same time. Even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms, it would be difficult for him to stop everyone. Just now, he took the lead to attack, to frighten everyone and make them fear him. He didn't expect that his move would be seen through by Liang Ying. Flowing killing seal. Facing the surging enemies, Tian's face suddenly calmed down. His eyes flashed with a frightening divine light. His eyes trembled, and he roared in a deep voice. His hands formed a strange seal, and suddenly a strange power flowed in the air, as if the heaven and earth were tilting. At this moment, Tian's cultivation was already at the 3rd layer true element layer. Even without the help of the force of the heavens and earth, he could still use the 3 seals of the divine battle god. Boom! In the void, a shocking handprint appeared. Its aura was ferocious as it smashed down like a mountain. Everyone felt the tyrannical pressure above their heads. Their hearts trembled, and their eyes revealed unconcealable shock. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out, as if a mountain had collapsed. It stirred up dust that was dozens of feet high, and a huge crater appeared on the ground. When the dust settled, dozens of corpses were strewn all over the ground. Those who charged forward first all died tragically on the spot. How terrifying! The remaining people's hearts trembled, and their feet unconsciously retreated, not daring to move forward. In the blink of an eye, dozens of true element realm warriors were killed with just one move. Was the young man in front of them really just a third-layer true element realm warrior? This was too inconceivable. Seeing this scene, Wu Feng's expression became sluggish. He couldn't help but look at Liang Ying and said in a trembling voice, "Oh, Master Liang, you should do it yourself. If this goes on, your White Tiger Hall's disciples will all be killed by this kid." Courting death. Liang Ying's eyes were as sharp as an eagle's as he spoke in a cold tone. A sharp cry came from behind him, and his body flew into the air. He clenched his hand into a claw, and surging origin energy condensed into a giant black claw in the air, grabbing at Nietian. At the same time, the lion-headed vulture in the air also made its move. With a sharp cry, it clawed down from the air with its sharp claws. One man and one eagle, one attacking from above, one attacking from below. Their cooperation was very tacit. Liang Ying and a lion-headed vulture attacked at the same time. It was no different from two spirit wheel realm warriors joining forces to attack Nietian. "Mr. Qiu Shan shouted when he saw this scene. "Stay beside the carriage and don't leave it for even half a step." Nietian roared fearlessly. Surging origin energy surged out from his body, and a giant red beast appeared behind him. It was the 9th level Chaos Beast. Roar! The 9th level Chaos Beast appeared again and roared at the sky. Its huge body had grown a lot bigger than before, and it was now a few hundred meters tall. In front of it, the lion-headed vulture immediately became a small bird. Howl! The lion-headed vulture's charging figure suddenly stopped in the air, and its eyes revealed an indescribable fear. This was the natural fear that a spirit beast had toward a king, a fear that came from the depths of its soul. The lion-headed vulture's eyes suddenly became clear. With a sharp cry, it actually turned around and left. Vulture! The sudden scene stunned Liang Ying. He roared crazily, but the lion-headed vulture actually flew away without looking back. Its body spiraled in the air and disappeared in an instant. Liang Ying was astonished. Why did the spirit beast that he had trained for so many years suddenly disobey his commands? Feathered beast so timid. Nietian didn't expect such a thing to happen, and he couldn't help but sneer in his heart. It turned out that the king's aura of the 9th level Chaos Beast was so powerful that it could directly scare away a spirit beast that was comparable to a spirit wheel realm warrior. When everyone saw the huge creature in front of them, their faces turned red, and their eyes became dull. What a terrifying origin spirit! Liang Ying, who was in midair, could feel the aura of the 9th level Chaos Beast. His eyes couldn't help but tremble. However, the next moment, he calmed down and sneered. "Isn't it just a powerful beast spirit? I'll let you see my origin spirit." As he sneered, Liang Ying released all the origin energy in his body, and a dark light flickered on his body. A huge black bird that was also a few hundred meters long appeared behind him. It was a rare sight for two people to release the giant spirit true body at the same time. Normally, after a warrior advanced to the true energy realm, they would rarely use the giant spirit true body. This was because the giant spirit true body was a bigger target, and once it was injured, it would definitely be a fatal injury. Compared to the giant spirit true body, the true energy chi and spirit will space were much more terrifying and safer. At this moment, when Liang Ying saw Nietian using the giant spirit true body, he actually started to use it as well, as if he wanted to prove that his origin spirit was stronger than Nietian's. If he thought so, he would be completely wrong. The 9th level Chaos Beast was an existence that surpassed the rank 9 venerable origin spirit. There was no other origin spirit in the world that was stronger than it. Even though Nietian was only at the true energy realm level 3, the aura of the 9th level Chaos Beast was not any weaker than Liang Ying, who was at the spirit wheel realm. Everyone retreated and waited for the two of them to fight with the giant spirit true body. The battle that followed would definitely be very bloody. Just imagine, two mountain-like beasts fighting with their flesh and blood. How violent would that scene be? Chapter 580. You're courting death. The corner of Liang Ying's eyes revealed a trace of coldness as he spoke in an awe-inspiring manner. He was currently facing a true energy realm warrior. If he didn't dare to fight him head-on, then he would be too cowardly as a spirit wheel realm warrior, especially in front of so many subordinates. Master, I want to devour this guy's original spirit. At this moment, the voice of the corpse demon lord was heard from the chaotic original coffin. The corpse demon lord's current body was that of a spirit-devouring rat. He lived by devouring the original spirit of a warrior. At this moment, his body was pitifully small, only the size of a child's fist. If he could devour Liang Ying's original spirit, his strength would definitely increase qualitatively. Even if he could not grow to the level of a level 9 chaos beast, he would not be far from it. Okay, Nie Tian naturally understood what the corpse demon lord meant. He agreed without hesitation. If the corpse demon lord's strength could increase, it would be considered an increase in Nie Tian's battle strength. However, it was not easy to devour Liang Ying's original spirit. First, he had to weaken Liang Ying. Only then could the corpse demon lord approach him. Otherwise, once the corpse demon lord approached the giant blackbird, he would not be able to withstand the pressure of the spirit wheel space. At this moment, Liang Ying made his move. The huge blackbird behind him emitted an ear-piercing cry. With a flap of its wings, the surrounding air was instantly pulled taut. Sand surged and danced in the air like sharp arrows, causing the air to emit crackling, exploding sounds. Although the giant blackbird was huge, it was extremely fast. It swooped down from the sky with flames all over its body. It was like a meteorite falling from the sky. It was swift and violent like thunder. Xiaojiu, it's up to you. Nie Tian was fearless. His gaze gradually became determined. All the original energy in his body surged out. Sword will, true energy, and star energy fused together to form a shining golden shield. At this moment, everyone held their breath and did not dare to make sound. They did not even dare to move. Their hearts were in their throats. The next collision would definitely shake the heavens and the earth and cause mountains to collapse and the earth to crack. Roar! The ninth extreme chaos beast roared into the sky. Its power was so strong that it could pierce through the clouds and crack rocks. Everyone's expression changed. The ninth extreme chaos beast exuded a mysterious and powerful aura. It was domineering and majestic, like a supreme emperor that had walked out of the primordial world. One look at it would cause one to have the urge to kneel down and worship it. Bang! In the next moment, the ninth-level chaos beast stomped hard with its 4 hooves, causing the ground to shake violently. It seemed to sink a little as a scarlet figure shot up into the sky to meet the huge black figure in the sky. What? What does this guy want to do? Was he crazy? He actually fought against a spirit wheel practitioner with a giant spiritual body. The crowd's pupils shrank, and their eyes were filled with extreme astonishment. No one would have thought that a true energy realm martial artist would actually use the giant spirit body to confront a spirit wheel realm martial artist. This was simply the behavior of a lunatic. Mo Rushi was extremely nervous, fearing that something might happen to Nie Tian. The giant spirit true body was the condensation of a martial artist's origin spirit. If it was injured, it would definitely harm the martial artist foundation. Qiushan's expression was solemn, but he had an almost paranoid trust in Nie Tian. He had been by Nie Tian's side for such a long time that he already knew that the latter was not only powerful and talented, but also extremely shrewd and steady. If it was something that he was not sure of, he would rarely take risks. More importantly, Qiushan had seen the power of Nie Tian's origin spirit, so he had confidence in him. Under the gaze of countless pairs of eyes, the 2 giant beasts, one red and one black, were getting closer and closer to each other. Finally, they collided. Kaboom! In midair, the 2 giant beasts collided with each other. Suddenly, there was a loud noise in the air, and a visible airwave surged in all directions. Everyone felt their hearts tremble. Many people could not withstand the terrifying airwave and vomited blood on the spot. The aura that was suddenly released was like a landslide and a tsunami that could not be stopped. The 2 giant beasts separated upon contact. One flew up, and the other smashed into the ground. Just as the 9 extreme chaos beast was about to hit the ground, the wings on its back suddenly opened. It was like an auspicious cloud that covered the sky, shook violently in the air, and then the falling body suddenly slowed down. On the other side, the black giant bird flew backward, and its body became a bloody mess. A shrill scream announced Liang Ying's crushing defeat. The clash of the giant spirit true body was a clash of flesh and blood, a clash of absolute strength. The stronger one would win. It was that simple. Nietian had awakened the power of 800 million stars in his body and had the power of 100 dragons. In addition, he had the 9-star Dragon Meridian's body and the innate strength of the 9 extreme chaos beast. Even the giant spirit true body of a spirit wheel realm martial artist would not be able to reach such a terrifying state. Liang Ying chose to fight with Nietian with the giant spirit true body, and this was the beginning of his crushing defeat. If he did not use the giant spirit true body, perhaps there would still be suspense in this battle. Once he used the giant spirit true body, it was tantamount to courting his own death. The 9 extreme chaos beast, a super powerful origin spirit that surpassed rank 9 supreme martial artist, was just that domineering. As the king of the world, who could compete with it? The 9 extreme chaos beast stabilized its body, but Nietian immediately recalled it. Then, he took a step forward and his figure rose from the ground. AO sword technique, godly sword. Nietian roared to the sky and executed the heaven slash of sword absolute heaven. A majestic and domineering sword aura surged out, and a huge sword shadow that was hundreds of meters long appeared in the sky and shot toward the black giant bird. No! Sensing the danger, Liang Ying screamed. Suddenly, he felt his heart tremble inexplicably, as if something had invaded his heart. He wanted to recall the giant spirit true body, but he was surprised to find that it was too late. The black giant bird wailed, and its body seemed to be covered with a layer of faint black gas, making it unable to move. And in the shadow of the giant bird, a small mouse that was hard to detect with the naked eye was desperately releasing a thick black gas. The spirit-devouring mouse could devour the origin spirit of a martial artist, so it naturally had the means to control the origin spirit. At this moment, a shocking sword whistled over from below. Swoosh! The sword light swept past, and fresh blood spurted out. It directly pierced through the neck of the black giant bird. Master, thank you. The corpse demon lord seized the opportunity and directly burrowed into the wound on the neck of the black giant bird. Ah! Liang Ying was in the air, and his face suddenly became abnormally painful. It was as if someone was strangling his neck. Instantly, he could not breathe, and he screamed tragically. Everyone's eyes trembled, and they had no idea what was going on. Little black bird, be obedient and become my food. The corpse demon lord chuckled, and the black gas that was released from the black giant bird's body suddenly contracted, like an invisible giant net suddenly tightening. The black giant bird's body shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it actually disappeared, and there was no flesh left. At this moment, what appeared in front of everyone was a fat mouse that was 100 meters long. Chapter 581. The strange scene in the sky left everyone dumbfounded. They had no idea what was going on. Nietian also frowned. This was the first time he saw a spirit-devouring rat devour an original spirit. It was unbelievable that such a huge bird that was hundreds of meters long was devoured in the blink of an eye. The corpse demon lord returned to the chaotic original coffin. His body remained the size of cat. He seemed to be very happy with a satisfied smile. After devouring the original spirit of a warrior at the spirit wheel realm, Demon Lord Corpse Luo experienced a qualitative leap. He only needed half a month to 1 month to completely digest the original spirit in his body. By then, his strength would definitely be comparable to that of a warrior at the spirit wheel realm. This was very good news for the corpse demon lord and Nietian. Nietian's figure landed steadily. He glanced around. Everyone who met his gaze subconsciously stepped back. The strength of the young man in front of him was too strange. It made everyone shudder. The giant spirit true body of a warrior in the third tier of primordial essence realm severely injured a warrior in the first tier of spirit wheel realm. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would not have believed it at all. Tian quickly looked at Liang Ying. The latter had a dull expression and was almost in a state of stupidity. Liang Ying could not believe that his original spirit was gone just like that. Such a strange thing was like a dream. What did you do to my original spirit? Liang Ying was in a daze. His voice was trembling and his eyes were filled with despair. If he had known that Niet Tian's original spirit was so strong, he would not have chosen to fight with him. The corner of Niet Tian's mouth twitched. He smiled coldly and said, "What can you do now, even if you know?" "Ah, brat, I'm going to kill you." With his original spirit devoured, Liang Ying directly turned from a spirit wheel realm warrior to an origin meridian realm warrior. Moreover, he was an origin meridian realm warrior who could never awaken his original spirit. This kind of difference from heaven to hell was unbearable for him. He roared crazily and rushed toward Niet Tian. Niet Tian couldn't be bothered to spare him a glance. A sharp sword intent shot out, and under the bloody light, Liang Ying's head fell to the ground. The Hall Master of the White Tiger Hall of the Transformation God Sect was dead. The moment Liang Ying said those words, he was destined to become a corpse. Hall Master is dead. The crowd's eyes trembled, and despair began to appear in their astonished eyes. Everyone scram. Niet Tian abruptly turned around and roared. The killing intent in his body seemed to have materialized, and it whistled in all directions along with the sharp sword intent. A thunderous roar resounded in everyone's ears. Their hearts trembled violently, and their bodies began to tremble crazily. Chapter 582. Looking at Wu Feng's pained expression, Niet Tian didn't have the slightest bit of sympathy in his eyes. Instead, his lips curled into a cold smile. Wu Feng's actions deserved all the pain he had to endure. That's enough. Wu Feng howled like a pig being slaughtered. Niet Tian saw that it was about time and nodded slightly. The reason why he handed Wu Feng over to the Corpse Lord was because he didn't want to kill him. Niet Tian guessed that with Wu Feng's strength and alchemy cultivation, his position in the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion wouldn't be low. The Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion was too mysterious. They had spies in all the major forces in the 3,000 small worlds. The Alchemist Guild, the Transforming God Sect, the Great Shu Empire, all the forces that Niet Tian came into contact with had spies from the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion. Some of the forces were even completely controlled by the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion. Niet Tian felt strange. The Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion seemed to be playing a big game of chess by infiltrating the major forces. Just what was the Pavilion Lord called Nether Ghost planning? Nether Ghost had once defeated Frenzied Blade Yilinya. No matter what method he used, he was still defeated. From this, it could be seen that this person was definitely extremely powerful and shrewd. Judging from Yilinyan's strength, Nether Ghost's current strength was definitely at the peak of the 3,000 small worlds, comparable to Tang Hao, Imo, Zhao Jing, and the others. For such a person to establish the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion and quickly infiltrate the other forces, it was obvious that he was setting a big trap. Niet Tian still couldn't guess what Nether Ghost was planning, so he wanted to use Wu Feng to probe the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion. Since the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion liked to plant spies in other forces, then Niet Tian would also plant a spy in the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion. It was impolite not to reciprocate. The Corpse Lord nodded slightly and chuckled at Wu Feng. "Little old man, you've already been hit by my corpse sigil. Just now, I gave you a warning so that you can remember this feeling. What do you want?" Wu Feng's entire body was drenched in sweat, and his forehead was covered in bean-sized beads of sweat. That feeling was too painful, and he didn't want to experience it a second time. Corpse Demon Monarch chuckled and said, "Lord Niet Tian is this monarch's master, and this monarch is now your master. Do you understand what I'm saying?" "I understand." Wu Feng glanced at Nie Tian with wariness in his eyes. He did not even dare to look at the latter. Not long ago, he had treated Nie Tian as a small ant. However, in just half a day, this small ant had directly become his master's master. Little old man, you'd better be honest and do whatever master tells you to do. Otherwise, you'll have to live the rest of your life in agony, where you can neither live nor die. With a sinister smile, Corpse Demon Monarch threatened and returned to the primal chaos original coffin, leaving the rest to Nie Tian. Nie Tian, my lord, what do you want me to do? Wu Feng recalled the feeling just now, and his heart still palpitated. He lowered his head, not daring to look at Nie Tian, and asked with a trembling voice, "You're from the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion?" Nie Tianling asked coldly. "Yes." Wu Feng nodded, and then said, "I'm only in charge of refining the 5-poison blood infant for Lord Pavilion Master. I really don't know anything else." Huh? Nie Tian's face sank. He hadn't even asked, and this guy was already evading. Courting death. Corpse Demon Monarch's voice rang in Nie Tian's and Wu Feng's ears at the same time. Wu Feng experienced the feeling of his body being torn apart again, and this time, it was even more intense. He rolled on the ground in pain, howling in pain. Mo Rushi and Ao Kiki Lily watched from afar, and they couldn't bear to watch any longer. They quickly entered the carriage. "Master, please stop. Master, please stop. I really don't know anything." Wu Feng rolled on the ground in pain, and his heart-wrenching howls made people's ears hurt. Nie Tianling looked at him coldly for a dozen seconds, and after confirming that he wasn't lying, he signaled Corpse Demon Monarch to stop. Wu Feng clearly wasn't the kind of person who would rather die than submit. If he didn't say anything while enduring such pain, it meant that he really didn't know anything. Nie Tian's cold gaze swept over Wu Feng, and he asked, "You said that the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion Master asked you to refine the 5-poison blood infant." "Yes, yes." Wu Feng nodded repeatedly. From the looks of it, he wasn't trying to shirk responsibility. This made Nie Tian even more confused. Hell Ghost had planted spies in the major forces, and he was refining such an extremely dangerous thing like the 5-poison blood infant. What was he trying to do? Wu Feng, listen carefully. I want you to know what your pavilion master is trying to do. Once there's any news, you can directly inform your master through the corpse sigil. Understand? Nie Tianling said coldly. Yes. Wu Feng nodded, and a glint flashed in his eyes as he asked, "Lord Nie Tian, as long as I figure out the pavilion master's goal, will you remove the sigil in my body?" Nie Tian sneered coldly, and the corner of his mouth twitched as he coldly said, "Do you still have the qualifications to talk conditions with me?" Wu Feng's face turned pale, and he was so scared that he didn't dare to speak again. Nie Tian naturally knew what this guy was thinking and lightly said, "Wu Feng, don't think that your pavilion master can help you remove the corpse sigil. The corpse sigil is an ancient demonic sigil. Even if you're thousands of miles away, your master will know about it, as long as you make any movements. You're a smart man, so it's best not to do anything stupid." Wu Feng suddenly looked up at Nie Tian, and his pupils suddenly shrunk as his eyes trembled violently. He didn't expect that Nie Tian could actually guess what he was thinking. He did want to see the pavilion master later and ask the latter to remove the sigil, but Nie Tian's words made him completely dispel the idea. From the method that Nie Tian used to directly devour Liang Ying's origin spirit, it was indeed too strange. Wu Feng wasn't willing to risk his life for it. "All right, you can scram now." Nie Tian couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with Wu Feng anymore, so he waved his hand and signaled the latter to leave. However, Wu Feng didn't have the intention to leave. He looked at Xiao Shan, gulped, and said, "Lord Nie Tian, if I go back without getting anything, the pavilion master will kill me. Please return the other 5-poison blood infant to me." Nie Tian glanced at him again with a pitiful look, but Nie Tian clearly wouldn't be soft-hearted. He smiled coldly and said, "You're so strong. How could your pavilion master bear to kill you? I'll leave the 5-poison blood infant, so scram." His voice was cold, leaving no room for negotiation. Wu Feng's heart violently trembled. This youth in front of him was much more ruthless than he had imagined. In fact, Nietian couldn't be blamed for being ruthless. It was just that the 5-poison blood infant was too terrifying. If it fell into Wu Feng's hands again, he wouldn't feel at ease. Hence, it was safer to keep it in his hands. Even if Nether Ghost really killed Wu Feng, Nietian wouldn't care. This lowly one will take his leave. Wu Feng saw that Nietian had already made up his mind, so he had no choice but to respectfully bid farewell and leave. Chapter 583. As soon as Nietian's voice fell, a familiar figure walked out from the side of Peaceful City's gate. It was the former Great Chu State Preceptor, Tawny. Nietian City Lord, long time no see. Tawny smiled as she leisurely walked over with light steps. There was a trace of charm in the air. Enchantress! Nietian cursed in his heart. Tawny was indeed very tempting. Her phoenix eyes were long and narrow, bright and enchanting. She wore a purple dress with a pink ribbon tied around her waist, perfectly showing off her hot figure. She was like a blooming rose, making people want to pounce on her and take a few hundred bites. In terms of charm, only Aoki Eureka could compare to Tawny. Nietian became cold. Of course, he knew that although a rose was tempting, it carried thorns. If he wasn't careful, he would hurt himself, so it was best not to provoke it. Tawny walked over with the corner of her mouth slightly raised. Her gaze swept over Nietian's body. Then she giggled and said, "Nietian City Lord, my aura was concealed so perfectly, but it was still sensed by you. It seems that your mental energy has increased a lot, and your strength has actually reached the 3rd level of true essence. It seems that every time we meet, you always bring me a pleasant surprise. In this way, won't I be able to get my red lotus demonic essence back soon? State Preceptor, you didn't come all the way here just to remind me to get back your red lotus demon essence, right?" Nietian said with a faint smile. Tawny helped Nietian obtain the Destiny Spirit Ginseng in the Chaotic Abyss, and the latter wanted to get back her red lotus demon essence from the Nether Ghost. Of course, Nietian wouldn't forget this matter. "Nietian City Lord, there's no need to be so polite. I'm no longer the State Preceptor of Great Chu. You can just call me Shaoli." Tawny charmingly smiled and said, "If I said I came to kill you, what would you do?" Nietian seemed to know that Tawny would say this, so he wasn't surprised. He smiled faintly and said, "You won't kill me, and you can't kill me." After not seeing her for more than half a year, Tawny's strength had already advanced to the 2nd tier of the Divine Wheel. She had used Nietian's power of the stars to open the eye of the Scar of the Dusk, so it was reasonable that her strength had risen quickly. However, even if she was a 2nd-tier Divine Will practitioner, Nietian was not afraid. Furthermore, she would not kill Nietian at all. Otherwise, who would help her obtain the Red Lotus demonic essence? Tawny's charming face stiffened. She didn't expect Nietian to say something like that. But she had just seen the scene of Nietian killing Liang Ying. Although she believed that her strength was far above Liang Ying's, Nietian's trump card was still far from being revealed. If the two of them were to fight to the death, Tawny really didn't dare to say that she would definitely win against Nietian. When she was in the Chaotic Abyss, she had seen with her own eyes Nietian use a super heaven-defying martial technique, like the Heaven Shrouding Totem. Withdrawing her smile, Tawny became more serious and said, "Nietian, this time, I am indeed here on someone's order to kill you. Furthermore, you will definitely encounter more assassins along the way. It's almost impossible for you to return to Su Mi Ling capital alive." Nietian's gaze trembled. He already knew that the matter of him leaving Su Mi Ling capital had been exposed. He didn't doubt that Tawny's words were false. The Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion was a terrifying organization, and there were countless assassins like Tawny. Nietian could deal with one Tawny, but if there were 2, 3, or a group of experts like Tawny, Nietian would only have one word: death. Zhang Tingyin. Nietian suddenly said a name inexplicably. Tawny was stunned. Nietian saw her reaction, and the corner of his mouth couldn't help but curl up. He said, "Seems like I guessed correctly. You are under the Dan Wu Hall's Zhang Tingyian's order to kill me. Am I right?" Tawny's gaze trembled, and she couldn't conceal her surprise. She didn't expect Nie Tian to even guess this point. That's right, Tawny was under Zhang Tingyian's order to kill Nie Tian. Zhang Tingyin is indeed a member of the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion. Nie Tian confirmed this information, and his face revealed a trace of astonishment. Back at Su Mi spiritual capital, he started to suspect Zhang Tingyin. The Dan Wu Hall's commander, Tai Shan and Tai He, had inexplicable killing intent towards him, and it must be Zhang Tingyian's order. Furthermore, back at the Alchemist Association, Zhang Tingyin also targeted him at all times. These suspicious points were enough to prove that this person's identity was fishy. For Tawny and the others to know the news of Nie Tian leaving Su Mi's spiritual capital at the first instance, it must be Zhang Tingyin who leaked it. With Zhang Tingyian's identity, it was very easy to find out Nie Tian's movements. Nie Tian was already a red-clothed elder now. If Zhang Tingyin wanted to kill him, he could only do it outside Su Mi's spiritual capital. As long as he entered Su Mi's spiritual capital, he would be safe. Looks like the road to Su Mi's spiritual capital is definitely filled with danger. It will be difficult for me to return. Nie Tian frowned slightly, and he couldn't conceal the worry on his face. If he was alone, even if there were thousands of troops and horses, he wouldn't be afraid. But with the Mo Tai and the others, it would be very difficult. At this time, Nie Tian suddenly turned his gaze to Tawny. A glint of light surfaced in his eyes, and he said, "Tawny, you didn't come here just to remind me, right?" Tawny was slightly startled. Nie Tian's intelligence was far beyond her expectations. She calmed down and said, "There's someone who wants to see you." "Someone wants to see me?" Nie Tian was stunned. So Tawny was just an errand boy. He was very curious, who had such a high status, to actually make Tawny willingly run errands for him. And Tawny nodded her head heavily and said, "That person said that he will wait for you in the outer city of Su Mi spiritual capital. As long as you come to the outer city of Su Mi spiritual capital, you will be able to see him." And Nie Tian's brows furrowed. Just who was it that was so difficult to meet, and why did they have to wait for him in the outer city of Su Mi spiritual capital? "Nie Tian, I wish you good luck." Tawny smiled, did not stay any longer, and turned to leave. Nie Tian stood in place, watching Tawny's figure disappear. He shook his head with a bitter smile. If he wanted to return to Su Mi spiritual capital, he could only rely on himself. At this time, Qiu Shan drove the carriage over and asked Nie Tian, "Mister, who was that person?" "A friend." Nie Tian smiled and jumped into the carriage. The carriage entered Peaceful City and directly went to the Origin restaurant. In the room, Nie Tian and Qiu Shan sat facing each other. If they wanted to safely return to Su Mi spiritual capital, they had to plan carefully. Qiu Shan put down the coffin behind him, looked at Nie Tian, and asked, "Mister, how do you plan to deal with this thing?" Qiu Shan carried the 5-poison blood infant on his back, and even though his blade dragon arm could restrain the 5-poison chi, he still had to be very careful. The 5-poison blood infant was too terrifying, and if he was not careful, something big would happen. Nie Tian opened the coffin, and the 5-poison blood infant was sealed by the sword intent, and had actually fallen into a deep sleep. Other than its scarlet body dripping with blood and its strange appearance, its sleeping expression was no different from an ordinary baby. Nie Tian stared at the 5-poison blood infant, and after a long time, he finally said, "I want him to live." Chapter 584. Qiu Shan was stunned when he heard Nie Tian say that he wanted the 5-poison blood infant to live. Qiu Shan had seen the terror of the 5-poison blood infant with his own eyes. Even a spirit wheel realm warrior couldn't resist the attack of the 5-poison chi. Moreover, Qiu Shan had been carrying the 5-poison blood infant, so he could feel the pressure of the 5-poison chi. If the 5-poison blood infant grew up, it was unknown how terrifying it would be. Qiu Shan calmed down and asked seriously, "Sir, the 5-poison blood infant is a very dangerous thing. Do you really want it to live?" He thought that Nie Tian would destroy the 5-poison blood infant, but he didn't expect the latter to want it to live. "Yes." Nie Tian nodded with a firm expression. He knew more about the terror of the five-poison blood infant than Xiao Shan, but he didn't want to destroy it. After all, it was a living being. If there was a crime, it was the person who refined the five-poison blood infant. It had nothing to do with the five-poison blood infant. Moreover, the five-poison blood infant was backed by the lives of hundreds of thousands of babies. Nie Tian couldn't bear to kill them. The reason why Nie Tian hadn't destroyed the five-poison scripture after obtaining it from Wu Feng was because he wanted to see how to refine the five-poison's blood infant and then find a way to turn it back into a normal person. He wanted the five-poison blood infant to live normally in place of the hundreds of thousands of babies who died tragically. Xiao Shan didn't ask much when he saw Nie Tian thinking. No matter what choice the former made, he would support it. Nie Tian closed the coffin and handed it to Xiao Shan, saying, "Get ready, we'll leave at night." Nie Tian had decided that he would bring Mo Tai and Mo Rushi to Shumi's spirit capital with Xiao Shan. Even if it was a mountain of knives and a sea of fire, he had to go through it. As for Aoki Yuri and Ding Yifan, it was better for them to separate. They weren't the target of Lin Xian Pavilion, so it would be more dangerous if they stayed with Nie Tian. After dark, Nie Tian and Xiao Shan took a few elixirs and recovered to their peak state. Aoki Eureka found a new carriage for Nie Tian and said, "Nie Tian City Lord, be careful." She was smart enough to know that Nie Tian had chosen to separate from them because he didn't want to implicate them. She also knew that if she stayed by Nie Tian's side, not only would she not be of help, but she would also become a burden. "Miss Lily, we'll meet at Sumi Ling Capital." Nie Tian smiled faintly and gently patted the horse. The carriage moved slowly. Aoki Lily stood where she was and watched as Nie Tian's carriage gradually disappeared. She felt a sense of loss in her heart and muttered, "Nie Tian, you are a hidden dragon. The Summer Festival is when you will truly soar into the sky." After leaving Ning City, Nie Tian did not stop to rest. He did not choose the main road, but a narrow and winding path. This was a small path that Aoki Lily had pointed out, and very few people knew about it. Along the way, the road was not good and there were many bumps. Fortunately, Mo Tai's injuries had already stabilized, and with Nie Tian channeling his essence force many times, he was not afraid of the tiring journey. Nie Tian chose to leave the city at night and chose a small path that no one knew about in order to avoid the assassins of Lin Xian Tian Pavilion. His luck was not bad. The journey was smooth, and he did not meet anyone who blocked his way. At daybreak, the carriage left the small path and entered the main road. During the day, there were many carriages on the main road, and it was very crowded. It was the day when the Sumeru Festival was about to begin, and this main road was the main road to Sumi Ling Capital. Of course, there were many people coming and going. Nie Tian's carriage was mixed in with the countless carriages, and it was very inconspicuous. Just one day, and we can enter the outer city of Sumi Ling Capital. "I hope nothing happens," Nie Tian said in his heart. But at this moment, the ground in the distance shook, and there was a rumbling sound as if thousands of soldiers and horses were marching. All the carriages came to a halt, wanting to see what was going on. The rumbling sound became louder, and the ground shook more and more violently. Mr. Xiao Shan immediately became vigilant, and he could not help but look at Nie Tian. Nie Tian's face was gloomy, and he did not speak. "Nie Tian, what happened?" Mo Rushi's voice came from the carriage. "I'm fine," Nie Tian answered with a faint smile. No matter what happened next, he would ensure the safety of Mo Rushi and the others. At this moment, there was a loud, rumbling sound, and a towering, baleful aura surged in the distance. Everyone's eyes narrowed as they looked into the distance. Countless mount wolves were galloping over like a beast tide, and on top of each mount wolf sat a blood-colored figure that exuded a bloody, baleful aura. At this moment, the sky turned dark, and the dark clouds in the sky seemed to be dyed blood red. "Everyone, stay where you are, don't move." Before the person arrived, the rumbling voice whistled over with an overbearing tone, and the crowd did not dare to take even half a step forward. In the next moment, a figure rushed over like a mad wolf, killing his way into the crowd. This person is so fierce. Everyone looked at the figure, and their hearts trembled. Siefeng. Nietion saw the figure clearly, and his eyes narrowed slightly. He recognized this person. He had once appeared at the Dragon Blood Martial gathering, and he seemed to be the hall leader of the transforming god sect's Green Dragon Hall. However, compared to before, Siefeng now had an additional frightening scar on his face. It seemed that Dongfang Du had died at the Dragon Blood Martial gathering, and Dongfang Yu had punished him severely. Who are you? How dare you be so arrogant in front of this young master? Do you believe that? At this time, someone who didn't know what was good for him stood out and looked at Siefeng arrogantly. He even wanted to threaten Siefeng. However, before he could finish his words, he was greeted by a blade that directly cut him in half. Blood splattered everywhere as he died on the spot. This person is so fierce. The crowd saw this scene, and their hearts trembled violently. They immediately fell silent, and no one dared to speak again. Everyone, listen up. I am the hall leader of the transforming god sect's Green Dragon Hall, and I am here to find someone. As long as you do not move, I guarantee that you will not die. Siefeng's gaze swept across everyone, and he shouted coldly. Transforming god sect's people, no wonder they are so arrogant. The crowd's eyes narrowed and revealed a deep sense of fear. The transforming god sect was a top force in the Nanshan region, and they controlled half of the Nanshan region. Siefeng had come to find someone aggressively, and it was unknown who had done something to offend the transforming god sect. Nietion frowned slightly. He originally thought that he might be able to sneak into the Shumi spirit capital by mixing in the crowd, but it seemed that he had underestimated the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion and the transforming god sect's determination to kill him. They actually dared to kill someone in such a brazen manner, and it seemed that the transforming god sect was really anxious. At this time, the Wolf Corps arrived, and they surrounded everyone, and the entire official road was paralyzed. Two figures walked out from the Wolf Corps, and their auras were much stronger than Siefeng's. Chapter 585. Seeing Mo Feng's appearance, Nietion's face turned gloomy. Even if he used his toes to think, he could understand that the reason why Mo Feng would appear here was to kill Mo Tai. In order to deal a blow to Nietion, the Mo family even killed their own clansmen. Mo Feng's appearance with the people of the God Transformation sect also proved that he was already a member of the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion. A figure standing next to Mo Feng also caught Nietion's attention. He appeared to be in his 30s, with not a single strand of hair on his head. However, there was a horrifying scar across his forehead, which made him look extremely bloodthirsty. A warrior at the second tier of the Divine Wheel. Nietion felt the strength of this person and was slightly shocked. He was actually at the second tier of the Divine Wheel. In the Divine Wheel realm, there was a world of difference. The strength of a warrior at the second tier of the Divine Wheel realm was several times stronger than that of a warrior at the first tier of the Divine Will realm. Seeing how respectful Siefeng was in front of this person, Nietion guessed that this person should be the deputy suzerain of the God Transformation sect. If it was the suzerain, Dongfang Yu, he should be even stronger. Nietion's guess was right. The bald warrior was the deputy suzerain of the God Transformation sect, Liao Teng. Liao Teng was very strong and could be regarded as a top expert in the Nanshan region. This time, Dongfang Yu asked him to come personally because she wanted to kill Nietion. Recently, the name Nietion frequently appeared in the ears of the people of the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion. Even the pavilion master, Yu Gui, already knew of Nietion's existence. Moreover, every time Nietion appeared, the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion suffered a huge loss. Wan Shirong and Jiao Jingde both died in the hands of Nietion. The spy that the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion planted in the Alchemist Guild was also exposed by Nietion. Just one day ago, even the 5-poison blood infant made by Wu Feng was snatched away by Nietion. This series of events was enough to make the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion view Nietion in a new light. If Nietion was allowed to grow, he would definitely become a big threat in the near future. So this time, no matter the price, he had to kill Nietion. Even if he were to anger the Alchemist Guild and lose the God Transformation sect, Nether Ghost would not hesitate to do so. Vice Sect Master, Elder Mo, Xiefeng bowed respectfully towards Mo Feng and Liao Tong. The corners of Mo Feng's mouth curled up into a cold smile. He had indeed left Sumi Ling capital this time to kill Mo Tai. However, after he had arrived at Peaceful City, he had inquired about a lot of information. Moreover, all of it had made him very excited. Before leaving Sumi's spiritual capital, Mo Feng went to see Zhang Tingyin. The latter told him that if there was anything he couldn't solve, he could look for the sect master of Transforming God Sect. Only then did he know that Transforming God Sect was also a force of Ling Xiantian Pavilion. Therefore, Mo Feng was now involved with the people of the God Transformation Sect. Although Mo Feng had yet to see Mo Tai's shadow, he knew that Nie Tian had also appeared. If he could take this opportunity to get rid of Nie Tian, wouldn't it be even better? Moreover, Nie Tian had killed the #1 disciple of Transforming God Sect, Ning Wudao. This was a very good reason to kill him. In the future, even if the Alchemist Guild wanted to investigate, they could only blame it on Transforming God Sect. Vice Sect Master, there are too many people here. What should we do? Xiefeng glanced at the carriages present. There were hundreds and thousands of carriages. He frowned and asked Liao Tong for instructions. It would not be easy to find Nie Tian among thousands of carriages. Moreover, they were not sure that Nie Tian was among this group of people. If they checked everyone and could not find Nie Tian, wouldn't they waste a lot of time? Umph! The corner of Liao Tong's mouth twitched. His cold face slightly stiffened. Then, he suddenly struck out with his palm. Boom! This palm strike was extremely fast. A huge force suddenly erupted and directly smashed a carriage in the distance. A deep pit appeared on the ground. All the people in the carriage died tragically. The all-out attack of a warrior in the second tier of the Divine Will realm was really terrifying. Is this person crazy? The crowd's hearts sank. They looked at Liao Tong with fear. They did not know what was wrong with him. How could he kill people so casually? Liao Tong smiled coldly and stretched out his hand again. In the void, a force swept out and actually grabbed a teenage girl. Ah! The girl was caught in the air by the invisible force. She screamed and her face turned red. In the next moment, she was about to be squeezed in a meat paste by the huge force. When everyone saw this scene, their faces became angry. Liao Ting had gone too far. He actually killed innocent people in front of everyone. Liao Ting did not care about these people at all. His malicious eyes swept across the crowd and a cold voice sounded. I will count to 3. If you do not come out by then, this little girl will be dead. 1. As soon as he finished speaking, Liao Tong really started counting. Only then did everyone understand that Liao Tong killed innocent people to force the person he was looking for out. This was truly insane. If the person he was looking for was an evil person who didn't care about the lives of these people, could it be that he wanted to kill everyone here? 2. On the second count, everyone's heart skipped a beat. It was like they could already see the bloody scene in the sky. Liao Tong was so cruel, and he brought thousands of underlings with him. Stepping out now was tantamount to seeking death. At this moment, only an idiot would step out. Still not going to step out? Are you going to watch a girl die because of you? Liao Tong's cold voice rang out. It was thick with mockery, as if this was just a game to him. 3. Then the third count was heard. Swoosh! Almost at the same time, a sharp and terrifying sword chi shot out and broke through Liao Tong's chi. The sword chi was like an invisible but warm hand that wrapped around the girl and landed her on the ground. Someone is stepping out. Just then, the crowd saw a handsome silhouette appear in the sky. They all looked up and screamed out loud. Nobody thought that at this moment, someone would really dare to step out. Moreover, it was a young man. Mr. Seeing that Nie Tian had already made his move, Qiu Shan's heart tightened. Hovering in midair, Nie Tian released wild sword chi from all over his body, but his eyes were cold and stern. Deputy Sect Leader, that's him. Xiefeng recognized Nie Tian. When he saw his face clearly, his expression became excited. Nie Tian, you really showed up. Mo Feng's lips curled into a cold smile. He was also inexplicably excited. In his opinion, Tian stepping out at this time was simply stupid. As long as he persisted for a while, when Liao Tong was tired of killing, he would naturally stop. Maybe Tian could escape this disaster. But now, taking the initiative to show up was tantamount to seeking death. No matter how powerful Tian was, it was impossible for him to fight against the Wolf Legion of the God Transformation sect alone. Moreover, Liao Tong, an expert in the second tier of the Spirit Wheel, was here. This time, it was impossible for Tian to escape. Are the people of the God Transformation sect all as shameless as you? You should die for using such means to force me to come out. Tianling looked at Liao Tong. His expression was as cold as ice. Every word he said was filled with suffocating coldness. Liao Tong was cruel, violent, and bloodthirsty. He actually used such a method to force Tian to come out. Chapter 586. Seeing that Tian had taken the initiative to appear, Liao Tong's lips curled into a sinister smile. You're too young after all, too soft-hearted. Of course, he was talking about Tian. If he was in Tian's shoes, then even if Tian killed everyone here, he would never show up. Not everyone is as cruel and unscrupulous as you. Tianling sneered. His entire body was like an unsheathed sword, sharp and sharp. Cruel and unscrupulous? Liao Tong didn't get angry. Instead, he laughed mockingly. Kindness has always been the behavior of the weak. The strong don't need to be kind to anyone, not even themselves. Just like you right now, kindness will kill you here. Is that so? Looking at Liao Tong's bloody face, the murderous intent in Tian's eyes became colder and colder. The person in front of him, he must kill. Tian had the intention to kill, but in the eyes of the crowd, he was the one who had to die. The deputy sect leader of the Transformed God sect had personally come out. Even the terrifying Mount Wolf Legion had taken the initiative. In addition to Mo Feng and Xie Feng, there was no way that Tian could escape this calamity. He's Tianluo City's governor, Tian. At this time, someone recognized Tian's identity and screamed. Tian, a few days ago, the Alchemist Guild's president, Lord Meng Fanshen, announced in front of everyone that Tian is the new elder in red of the Alchemist Guild. Could it be him? In a few days, Tian's name had spread throughout the 3,000 small worlds. That's him, the guy who escaped from the chaotic abyss. Everyone stared at the young man with the sword in the sky, with trembling eyes mixed with a trace of worship. The name Tian was now the most famous person in the 3,000 small worlds. To become a red-robed elder of the Apothecary Guild at such a young age, this was an unprecedented matter in the 3,000 pocket worlds. Tian's face turned gloomy when he was recognized by the crowd. With Liao Tang's ruthless methods, he definitely wouldn't let these people leave, especially since they already knew Tian's identity. Liao Tang's sinister gaze swept across the crowd. His eyes became ruthless as he made a decision in his heart. Kill everyone here. The news of the God Transformation sect killing the red-clothed elder of the Apothecary Guild must not be spread out. Although the God Transformation sect was strong, they could not afford to offend the Alchemist Guild. However, before killing everyone, Liao Tong still wanted to kill Tian first. Tian, how do you want to die? Since Tian's identity had already been identified, Liao Tong no longer had any scruples. He stared coldly at Tian and spoke coldly. Tian felt a mighty coercion enveloping him. His body shook slightly and directly broke through it. He said indifferently, "You can't kill me." Liao Tong's eyes narrowed. He didn't expect Tian to be able to break through his coercion so easily. He was an expert at the second tier of the Spirit Wheel. His coercion was enough to make it difficult for a warrior at the 5th tier of the Spirit Wheel to operate his Yuan meridians. Tian was only at the 3rd tier of the Spirit Wheel. How could he break through his coercion? Strange. Mo Feng also frowned and reminded Liao Tong, "Lord Liao, this boy's strength is different from ordinary people. Don't be careless." On the surface, Tian was at the 3rd tier of the Spirit Wheel realm, but his real combat strength was not inferior to a warrior at the 9th tier of the Spirit Wheel realm. Once he used all his trump cards, even a warrior at the Spirit Wheel realm would not be afraid. Good. Liao Tong smiled and said to Xie Feng, who was beside him, "Home Master Xie, come and test this boy's strength." Liao Tong looked very boorish and gave people the illusion that he was all brawn and no brains. However, in reality, he was a very cautious and shrewd person. He knew that Nie Tian had killed Liang Ying, the Hall Master of the White Tiger Hall, and Liang Ying was at the 1st tier of the Spirit Wheel realm. Coupled with the fact that he tested Nie Tian just now, he was even more cautious. Therefore, he let Xie Feng take the lead and test Nie Tian's strength. Yes, Xie Feng smiled and looked at Nie Tian. He stomped his feet and leaped into the air, facing Nie Tian. In his opinion, no matter how heaven-defying Nie Tian's strength was, it was impossible for him to be a match for him. With a cold smile, Xie Feng looked at Nie Tian and said, "City Lord Nie Tian, I know that your strength is unfathomable. However, if you're in my hands, I'll kill you within 3 moves." Nie Tian didn't even look at him. He had seen many such idiots who thought they were infallible. Xie Feng only needed 1 move to kill him. Xie Feng was at the 9th tier of the True Element realm. To others, this strength was very strong. However, in front of Nie Tian, it was only worth a 4th tier Star Soul. First move, seeing that Nie Tian didn't speak, Xie Feng thought that he was afraid. He laughed and roared. His silhouette moved and punched out. The true energy of a 9th tier True Element realm martial artist was released. An ear-piercing whistling sound echoed in the air as a terrifying fist shadow blasted towards Nie Tian. So strong, the hearts of the crowd trembled as they felt the terrifying power contained in the fist shadow. Their bodies couldn't help but tremble. Xie Feng clearly put all his strength into this punch. Would Nie Tian be able to block it? Nie Tian's silhouette stood in the wind, unmoving like a bell. He didn't seem to care about Xie Feng's attack at all. What is he doing? Seeing that Nie Tian didn't even move, the crowd exclaimed in shock. Wasn't he committing suicide? Courting death? Just as the terrifying fist shadow was about to land on Nie Tian's body, a cold and solemn voice rang out. "I only need 1 move to kill you." Boom! As the sound of his voice faded, Nie Tian's originally calm body suddenly erupted with a terrifying aura. Boundless astral energy gushed forth as beams of astral light twinkled in the air. It was as though they contained an inexhaustible amount of energy that would never cease. Boom! In the next instant, the boundless astral energy suddenly condensed into a thick golden lightning bolt, directly shattering the fist shadow. Ka! The golden lightning bolt was like an arrow released from a bow. Without giving Xie Feng any time to react, it directly bombarded his body. The golden light flashed by, and the crowd was so blinded that they couldn't open their eyes. When they opened their eyes again, a charred corpse appeared in the air. It was Xie Feng. This scene caused the crowd to fall into a deathly silence. 1 move. With just 1 move, Xie Feng, the leader of the Green Dragon Hall of the Transformation God sect, died on the spot. This scene was too shocking. The crowd couldn't recover for a long time as they stared blankly at the proud figure in the air. The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched. He was satisfied with the power of the rank 4 Wild Thunderstar Soul. If he were to fight with Xie Feng, Nie Tian would also be able to win. However, it wouldn't be as easy as it was now. How is this possible? After a long time, Liao Tong lost his voice in shock. The power of the golden lightning was so terrifying that even a Tier 2 Divine Wheel expert like him felt threatened. This brat must be killed. Nie Tian's shocking display of strength made Liao Tong even more determined to kill him. Chapter 587. Liao Tong had seen a lot of cross-realm battles, but the scene he saw just now was the most shocking to him. Nie Tian's talent was not ordinary to be able to kill his opponent in 1 move across 6 small realms. Mo Feng was also stunned at this time. He didn't expect Nie Tian's strength to be so terrifying. He estimated that Mo you might not be Nie Tian's opponent at this time. This Grandmaster, your underling has already died. Have you tested out my strength yet? Floating in midair, Nietian shouted at Liao Tong in a provocative manner, with true origin energy swirling around his body. Boy, you are courting death. In front of so many subordinates, if Liao Tong blindly retreated, then he, as the vice sect master, would be too useless. With this in mind, he stepped on the ground, and the ground seemed to shake. His figure rose from the ground and directly came to a place tens of meters away from Yetian. Liao Tang's whole body was full of killing intent. His cold eyes wandered on Yetian like a wolf staring at a little sheep. But unfortunately, Yetian was not a lamb that could be slaughtered by others. The vice sect master of God transformation sect is going to do it himself. The crowd's eyes narrowed, and they looked a little excited. Most of them had never seen a spirit wheel realm warrior in action. Now that they could see it with their own eyes, of course, they were excited. Nietian looked at the person in front of him. The murderous aura coming from the person in front of him made him tremble. This was a kind of murderous aura formed by ordinary people killing people. It was extremely bloody, and it made his whole person exude an evil aura. Boy, you killed 2 of my God Transformation Sect's Hall Masters. If I let you go today, my name is not Liao Tong. Liao Tong smiled coldly. The murderous aura all over his body spread out like a tide, covering the space hundreds of meters around him. Nietian was in the murderous aura space, but his face was as calm as ever. He said faintly, "I don't care what your name is, but you have to pay for the people you killed just now." In order to force Nietian out, Liao Tong destroyed a carriage and killed the 3 people in it. Everything happened in an instant, leaving no time for Nietian to react. He couldn't save the 3, so he could only avenge them. "Brat, you still want my life?" As if he had heard a big joke, Liao Tong laughed and mocked. "I would like to see how a Tier 3 true element martial artist can break through my Godwill space." As soon as he finished speaking, a formless energy surged out of Liao Tong's body. It instantly filled the surrounding space, and the fierce gales in the surroundings stopped. Nietian felt as if the space around him had solidified, making him feel as if he had sunk into a swamp. The scariest thing about spirit will practitioners was their spirit will space. Liao Tong suppressed Nietian the moment he made a move. Obviously, he didn't want to give Nietian any chance to retaliate. "Brat, are you afraid now?" Liao Tong laughed sinisterly when he saw that Nietian's expression had turned solemn. "Scared?" Nietian sneered. All the sword essence in his body suddenly erupted, and he shouted, "I also want to see how you can break through my 12 heaven-slaying sword formation." As soon as his loud voice fell, a strange scene suddenly happened. The surging sword essence in Nietian's body instantly gathered together and turned into 12 pure sword essences. The sword essences instantly condensed into human figures in the air. The human figures condensed by the sword essences emitted a dazzling brilliance and were filled with terrifying sword essences. Upon closer inspection, every human figure condensed by the sword essences was exactly the same as Nietian. Liao Tong was shocked by the scene in front of him. His face instantly stiffened, and he didn't dare to act rashly. Nietian's strength was already very strange. Seeing the strange scene in front of him, Liao Tong couldn't help but be more cautious. 12 Nietians. When the crowd saw the strange scene in the air, their gazes froze, and their hearts trembled violently. They had never seen such a strange scene before. It was unbelievable that someone could actually condense a clone using sword essences. Nietian. At this moment, Mo Rushi also saw the scene in the air. Her exquisite lips slightly curled up, and there was an unconcealable pride on her face. Nietian had used the 12 heaven-slaying sword formation before, but at that time, he was only a swordsman of sword heart and could only condense sword chi clones. Now, he was a swordsman of sword will, so he could condense sword will clones. Sword chi clones and sword will clones only differed by one word, but the power of the two was like heaven and earth. Sword will clones were closer to sword spirit clones than sword chi clones, so they could better display the power of the 12 heaven slaying sword formation. With Nietion's current strength, condensing 12 sword clones was not a small burden for him, and it consumed a lot of his origin power. However, he had no choice because only the 12 heaven-slaying sword formation could contend with Liao Tong's divine will space. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to even move in the divine will space. Brat, no matter what tricks you play, you have to die today. Liao Tong faintly felt that something was wrong, and his face suddenly became ferocious. Without waiting any longer, a scimitar with a wolf head appeared in his hand, and he fiercely slashed at Nietion. Suddenly, the void trembled, and a sharp blade light that was hundreds of meters long whizzed out, attacking towards Nietion. Finally can't help but make a move? Tianling shouted coldly, and the 12 sword clones around him immediately soared into the sky. At the same time, he stabbed out with the absolute heaven slash in his hand. Surging sword surged out, and a sword shadow suddenly slashed down. Boom! The sword and the blade collided, and a crisp sound was actually heard in the air, as if steel had collided. Nietion's figure was directly sent flying, and a deep wound appeared on his right arm. Liao Tong was, after all, an ancient martial art practitioner at the second tier of the Divine Wheel. In a head-on collision, Nietion was still slightly inferior. Nietion steadied his body, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and suddenly shouted in a cold voice, 12 heaven-slaying sword formation, open. As his thunderous voice fell, the void suddenly shook violently. Suddenly, 12 huge sword shadows that were hundreds of meters long appeared, connecting the sky and the earth. Like stone pillars that connected heaven and earth, they wrapped around both Nietion and Liao Tong. When Liao Tong saw the huge sword shadows that suddenly appeared around him, his eyes narrowed, and he felt a chill in his heart. What is this? The crowd on the ground was shocked to see the huge sword formation that suddenly appeared in the sky. No one had expected that Nietion could actually activate such a terrifying sword formation in the space of Liao Tong's divine wheel. Nietion's strength was beyond everyone's imagination. When Mo Feng saw the scene in the sky, he was immediately shocked, speechless. He suddenly had a bad feeling that Liao Tong would also die in the hands of Nietion, right? In the sword formation, Liao Tong's expression was extremely ugly. Although he had been cautious enough, he still let Nietion have the upper hand. He could sense that the sword formation in front of him most likely had the power of a fifth-rank spiritual formation. Even if he was an ancient martial art practitioner at the second tier of the Divine Wheel, it would not be easy for him to forcefully break the sword formation. Nietion, I originally didn't want to use this move, but you forced me to. A fierce look flashed in Liao Tong's eyes, and his face suddenly became hideous. A bloody aura suddenly surged out of his body, and his body was shrouded in a bloody mist. Chapter 588. Nietion stared at the demon wolf in front of him and couldn't help but narrow his eyes. This demon wolf actually had 2 heads, each bearing its fangs and releasing a bloody and violent aura. This is Liao Tong's original spirit. Nietion's eyes trembled, but he couldn't find Liao Tong himself, which made him feel a little strange. Generally speaking, a martial artist and their original spirit would appear at the same time. It was rare to see a situation like this where only the original spirit was present. The 2-headed demon wolf bared its fangs and let out a low growl. Its 2 pairs of eyes stared straight at Nietion. In the next moment, the 2-headed demon wolf's body moved. It actually turned into a crimson light, and its extremely fast figure was like a phantom, like the wind and lightning. Its huge body was like a red vortex, pouncing straight at Nietion. So fast, Nietion's eyes flickered. He didn't expect the demon wolf to be so fast. He didn't have time to react and immediately activated the extreme wood blue sky battle armor. At the same time, his entire body surged with sword intent, forming a flowing light shield around him. Bang! In the void, a huge sharp claw slashed over, and several rays of crimson light appeared. It hit Tian and directly broke through the sword shield around him. Even the extreme wood blue sky battle armor outside his body was directly shattered. Tian's figure flew backward, and there were a few deep wounds on his chest. Immediately, blood gushed out. Tian frowned slightly. The two-headed demon wolf's speed and strength were beyond his expectations. He didn't expect it to be able to explode with such terrifying power in his 12-heaven slaying sword formation. Brat, obediently accept your death. The two-headed demon wolf bared its fangs and actually spoke. The surrounding bloody aura surged, giving people a very strange feeling. Human spirit unity. At this moment, Tian suddenly understood that Liao Tong didn't disappear, but he had merged with his original spirit. When a martial artist and his original spirit merged into one, the original spirit's strength would increase exponentially. In his previous life, Tian had also seen this kind of martial art. It was very terrifying and could easily allow a martial artist to challenge someone of a higher level. It seems that Liao Tong must have cultivated some kind of strange martial art that allowed him to achieve the state of one with the spirit. Brat, you have quite a lot of experience. Unfortunately, it's all useless. Under the power of my two-headed monstrous wolf, after becoming one with the spirit, you must die. The two-headed demon wolf let out a deep roar once again. Its eyes turned scarlet red, and its aura surged once again. Tian's pupils constricted slightly, but he immediately calmed down and locked his gaze on the two-headed demon wolf. At this moment, Tian's divine sense seemed to have fused with the power of heaven and earth, and his soul entered a state of unity with heaven and man. In this space, he was the heaven and earth, and the heaven and earth were him. Roar! Suddenly, the two heads sensed that the power of heaven and earth around them had changed. They shook their heads and let out a low roar. Their bodies turned into a ball of blood-red light and rushed toward Tian. Tian was as still as a bell. His figure stood in the air like a sharp sword that pierced through heaven and earth. Just as the two-headed demon wolf approached, a surge of sword intent suddenly bloomed in the air, sharp and powerful. What a terrifying sword intent! The two-headed demon wolf felt that the surrounding power of heaven and earth was gathering towards Tian. Its huge body trembled slightly, and its eyes revealed an inexplicable fear. It did not dare to come any closer. Slash! At this moment, a roar suddenly sounded. Tian held the sword with both hands and slashed down from the sky. Suddenly, the surrounding 12 heavenly sword shadows sensed it and instantly gathered together. In the void, a huge sword shadow of hundreds of meters appeared. The sword shadow was like a mountain, and the sword intent was like the sea. This was the most terrifying sword shadow condensed by the most terrifying sword intent. It seemed to have the power to tear the world apart. The four pupils of the two-headed demon wolf shrank at the same time, revealing an uncontrollable fear. It wanted to escape, but it was too late. Boom! The terrifying sword shadow directly slashed down. Suddenly, the surging sword intent was like a collapsing mountain. It fell heavily, and the surrounding space trembled. The two-headed demon wolf let out a blood-curdling roar and charged forward with its huge head. With a crashing sound, half of the demon wolf's head was directly cut off. The sky was filled with a bloody light. It was a bloody scene. The shocking sword actually did not kill the two-headed demon wolf and only seriously injured it. After all, Tian's strength was too weak. After becoming one with the two-headed demon wolf, he was not inferior even to a warrior at the third tier of the divine wheel. The two-headed demon wolf is indeed very strong. Tian's figure stood in the air and stared at the two-headed demon wolf. His eyes couldn't help but tremble. The 12-heaven slaying sword formation just now consumed a lot of his elemental energy, but it was really a pity that it did not kill the other party. After half of the two-headed demon wolf's head was cut off, it immediately became crazy and let out an angry roar toward the sky. The crowd below was stunned. They never imagined that Tian could actually gain the upper hand in Liao Tang's divine wheel space, and even seriously injure his opponent. This strength was strange and unpredictable. Liao Teng, don't let me down. Mo Feng saw that half of the two-headed demon wolf's body was dyed red with blood, and he couldn't help but become nervous. He really wanted Nie Tian to die, but every time Nie Tian displayed strength that was far beyond his expectations, this made the hatred in his heart inexplicably expand. Nie Tian, your sword formation has been broken. Let's see how you can continue to fight. The two-headed demon wolf growled coldly. Its whole body was filled with a bloody and vicious aura. It was a warrior at the Divine Wheel realm and the deputy clan leader of the Transformation God sect, but it was forced to this point by a youth at the True Energy realm. It was even almost killed. One could imagine the anger in its heart. Although Nie Tian's sword was terrifying, it was integrated with the power of the 12 heaven-slaying sword formation. Now that the sword formation had been broken, how could he resist the two-headed demon wolf's terrifying strength? Nie Tianling snorted, and the corner of his mouth raised into a cold smile. He said indifferently, "Who said I only have one sword formation?" The two-headed demon wolf's expression was slightly sluggish, and it was shocked. Could it be that the other party had other sword formations? Liao Tong, I just said that you will pay for the people you killed with your life. Therefore, there's only one ending for you, and that's death. Nie Tian said coldly. His eyes exuded a domineering aura that looked down on the entire world. His figure suddenly spoke, and the blood and qi in his body were released. The violent aura surged hundreds of meters away, and the smell of blood in the space suddenly became several times stronger. Liao Teng felt the smell of blood rushing toward him. It was actually stronger than the aura on his body. Was this kid a human or a ghost? How could he release such a terrifying aura? Come on, Nie Tian roared, and the fighting spirit of his whole body burned crazily. Endless blood and qi filled the air, making people feel a sense of despair and destruction. Blood qi filled the air, sword intent surged, and the surrounding space turned blood red. A strange spell formation appeared around Nie Tian, which seemed to be circulating around him without end. This was the second sword formation in the AO sword tactics, the Sword Seal Forbidden Formation. Last time, in the Chaotic Abyss, Nie Tian used this formation to break the Guardian Spirit Ginseng. Chapter 589. The crowd raised their heads to look at the sky, and their expressions became sluggish. Nie Tian had broken their imaginations time and time again, and the shock he had brought them was almost numb. Nie Tian, what a terrifying person. Sensing the terrifying aura of the sword-sealing forbidden array, Mo Feng became dumbfounded and murmured, "What's your limit?" Just now, Mo Feng just thought that you might not be the opponent of Nie Tian, but now he was very sure that you was absolutely not the opponent of Nie Tian. At the moment, Nie Tian was only at level 3 of True Element. Once he reached the Spirit Wheel stage, his strength would be immeasurable. Sword Sealing Formation open. The blood qi in Nie Tian's body surged to the extreme as a rumbling sound rang out. The aura of the Sword Sealing Forbidden Formation grew even stronger, enveloping the space within 1,000 meters, turning it into a bloody mist. The Sword Sealing Forbidden Array used a martial artist's blood qi as a guide, condensing the array with the purest sword intent. Even if the restriction array could only display a 10,000th of its power, it was still something that ordinary people could not imagine. Nie Tian, who exactly are you? Feeling the terror of the Sword Sealing Forbidden Array, Liao Tong was about to go crazy. The two-headed demon wolf's body was trembling, and its eyes were filled with uncontrollable fear. I'm the one who wants your life. The corners of Nie Tian's mouth curled up in a strange manner. His face became evil, causing people to shudder. This time, he wanted to devour Liao Tong alive. Not only did he want to kill Liao Tong, he wanted him to die a horrible death. Arrogant, Liao Tong roared angrily. After all, he was a second-tier Divine Wheel expert. He calmed down at this crucial moment. He knew that the only thing he could do now was to fight. If he ran, he would die even more miserably. Nie Tian, I will kill you today." The two-headed Yao wolf raised its head to the sky and howled. Its huge body began to release a violent aura. At the same time, its body continued to grow. In the blink of an eye, it had grown to a length of 1,000 meters. "Is that so?" Nia Tianling smiled coldly, and his fighting spirit became firmer. This was a battle of life and death. Whoever retreated would die. Nia Tian stood proudly in the air and coldly said, "Sword sealing forbidden array, demon sword incinerates the world." As the cold voice fell, the endless power of the sword sealing forbidden array gathered on the heaven slash of the sword absolute slash, giving the sharp long sword a new lease on life. The sword radiance surged for dozens of meters, releasing a cold aura. The sword absolute heaven slash condensed the power of the sword sealing forbidden formation, causing the sword to become huge, turning into a huge sword burning with blood-red flames. Buzz! The sword absolute heaven slash let out an intense sword cry, causing space to tremble and dark clouds to surge. It was as if heaven and earth were boiling. What a terrifying sword! Liao Tong stared at the demonized sword in Ye Tian's hand, and his heart trembled violently. That sword actually made him feel a thick aura of destruction, and Ye Tian's aura was constantly rising. Kill! Liao Tong didn't dare to wait any longer. The huge body of the two-headed demon wolf moved. Boom! The two-headed demon wolf's figure was as fast as lightning. It was like a meteorite flying from the horizon, bringing with it a dense flame as it charged towards Nye Tian. Good timing. Nye Tianling sneered and took a step forward. A shocking sword wolf followed his figure, and the destructive aura on the sword absolute heaven slash became more and more intense. Demon sword burns the world, slash. As the mighty voice rang out, the sword absolute heaven beheader slashed down from the sky. The endless power of the blood-red spell formation surged out, and the surrounding space turned into a blood-red ocean. The scarlet sea surged and roared as the power of the formation swept over like scarlet snakes. Ow! The crimson snake instantly wrapped around the two-headed demon wolf's body. The demon wolf immediately felt a huge resistance. The space seemed to have solidified, and it immediately let out a miserable howl. What is this? The twin-headed demon wolf was shocked. It never thought that it would be controlled. In the next moment, endless blood-colored air waves rolled over and directly drowned the two-headed demon wolf. Liao Tong, don't worry. You won't die so quickly. I will let you die slowly. Nye Tian's voice was cold and gloomy, without the slightest bit of pity. At this moment, he already had a way to torture Liao Tong. A martial artist who was one with the spirit contained all the martial artist's yuan qi, consciousness, and soul. Nye Tian wanted to use the sword-sealing forbidden array to directly swallow Liao Tong. The sword-sealing forbidden array used blood qi as a guide, and the sword will to condense the array. After activating the sword-sealing forbidden array twice, Nye Tian made a huge discovery. The sword-sealing forbidden array seemed to have a strong devouring power. In his previous life, he only condensed the proud sword will, but in this life he had two kinds of sword will, the proud sword will and the star soul sword will. The star soul sword will originated from the power of the stars, and the power of the stars had the power to devour the sky. Therefore, it was not strange that the sword-sealing forbidden array had the attribute of devouring. Ow! A miserable howl sounded. The power of the blood-red spell actually penetrated into the two-headed demon wolf's body and slowly tore apart its body, soul, and consciousness. What on earth happened? The crowd looked up at the horizon and saw a sea of blood. The miserable howl of the demon wolf resounded in their ears. Is Liao Tong going to be defeated? Mo Feng's face stiffened. He did not know what was happening in the sky. At this moment, Liao Tong was not going to be defeated. He was going to die. The two-headed demon wolf integrated with his body, consciousness, and soul. At this moment, it was being slowly devoured by the power of the spell. This was the cruelest way to die. He could only watch helplessly as his body and soul were destroyed, but he was powerless to do anything. As the power of the spell seeped into the two-headed demon wolf's body, The demon wolf's body gradually turned into the purest yuan qi and dissipated in the void. Such pure yuan qi cannot be wasted. Nie Tian smiled, and the ninth extreme chaos beast appeared behind him. Roar! The ninth extreme chaos beast seemed to be happy to see its prey. It raised its head to the sky and let out an excited roar. Immediately, its body moved, and it opened its mouth to crazily absorb the surrounding yuan qi. The ninth extreme chaos beast contained the body of the ninth extreme and the soul to devour the sky. It could devour all kinds of yuan qi of different attributes and turn them into its own yuan qi. As the ninth extreme chaos beast continued to devour yuan qi, Nie Tian felt the yuan qi in his body began to increase continuously. His yuan meridians were also continuously strengthening. Very good. Nie Tian could not hide his excitement. After completely devouring the two-headed demon wolf's energy, his strength could at least advance to the 6th level of true element. Originally, with the two-headed demon wolf strength, if he completely devoured it, Nie Tian's strength should be able to reach the spirit wheel realm. Unfortunately, too much yuan qi was lost, and it was impossible for him to completely devour it. In the thick blood mist, the two-headed demon wolf's aura became weaker and weaker. After a while, it finally disappeared completely. Roar! The ninth extreme chaos beast devoured a lot of yuan qi, but it was still not satisfied. It roared with dissatisfaction and immediately returned to the chaos original coffin. Nie Tian sat cross-legged in the sky. In his body, the 9 yuan meridians were crazily expanding. After a while, Nie Tian stood up again. His aura was much stronger, and the wounds on his body had disappeared. Chapter 590. The 9th grade chaos beast swallowed the power of the two-headed wolf, allowing Nie Tian's strength to soar from the 3rd tier of the spiritual energy realm to the 6th tier. Unfortunately, there are not many martial artists who are at the human spirit unity stage. If I met a few more, my strength would improve very quickly. Nie Tian murmured with the corner of his mouth raised. The reason why the 9th grade chaos beast could directly swallow the power of the two-headed wolf was mainly because the latter was a martial artist who was at the human spirit unity stage. Liao Tong certainly did not think that he would die at the hands of Nie Tian, and in such a miserable way. Nie Tian waved his hand slightly, and the endless blood mist in the sky suddenly dispersed. Why is he alone? The crowd was shocked. They only saw Nie Tian, but not Liao Tong. They were stunned. Where is Sect Master Liao? Mo Feng was also shocked. He could not hide the horror on his face. Was Liao Tong dead? The people of the deity transformation sect could not find Liao Tong. They were even more shocked and panicked. There was a commotion in the Wolf Legion. At this time, Nie Tian's figure slowly descended, releasing a terrifying sword intent. His eyes locked directly on Mo Feng, and he said in a cold voice, "Elder Mo Feng, you didn't come all the way here just to watch the show, did you?" Mo Feng sensed the coldness on Nie Tian and suddenly sensed that the latter's strength had strangely soared by 3 tiers. No matter how strong his mind was, he could not hide his fear at this time. His body could not help but tremble, and he staggered and almost fell. This scene was seen by everyone, and everyone was shocked to the extreme. It was too shameful for a dignified elder of the Mo family to panic in front of a young man. Nie Tian, what do you want to do? I am an outer sect elder of the Mo family. If you kill me in front of so many people, the Mo family will not let you go. Mo Feng forced himself to calm down, but his voice could not stop trembling. He was actually using the Mo family to threaten Nie Tian. He never expected that things would develop to this point. The deputy suzerain of the deity transformation sect, a dignified 2nd-tier martial artist of the spirit wheel, had actually died at the hands of Nie Tian. All this was too strange. Using the Mo family to threaten me? When Nie Tian landed, he was only a few meters away from Mo Feng. Staring at Mo Feng coldly, he mocked, "Elder Mo Feng, why don't you threaten me with the Ling Xian Heavenly Pavilion? Your current identity is extraordinary. You are an elder of the Mo clan and an assassin of the Ling Xian Heavenly Pavilion. I did not dare to kill you. What do you mean by that? Mo Feng was stunned and wanted to quibble. Nie Tian shook his head and smiled, but his expression suddenly turned icy cold in the next moment. He said in a cold voice, Mo Feng, let me tell you something. I don't care what your identity is, but you must never hurt the people around me. Otherwise, you'll end up like Liao Tong, dying without a complete corpse. Die without a complete corpse. When Mo Feng heard the last 4 words, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning on a clear day. Nie Tian had personally admitted to killing Liao Tong. However, with so many people present, no one actually saw how he killed. This was too unbelievable. Now scram. Without waiting for Mo Feng to react, Nie Tian coldly shouted and directly turned to leave. As he walked, he said, Go back and tell Mo Zhaojing that Lord Mo Tai is not dead. Tell him not to waste his efforts. Mo Feng froze in place for a long time. After a long time, he finally reacted and led the few people behind him to run away. The reason why Nie Tian did not kill Mo Feng was naturally because of his own considerations. In any case, Mo Feng was still an elder of the Mo clan. If he were to be killed in front of so many people, it would be hard to explain to the Mo clan. It might even set off a war between the Alchemist Guild and the Mo clan. This was something that Nie Tian did not want to see. Moreover, the current Mo Feng was no longer a threat to Nie Tian, so he didn't care whether a small shrimp was dead or alive. Nie Tian walked through the encirclement of the Soul Transformation Sect's Wolf Legion as if there was no one there. Everyone from the Soul Transformation Sect looked at him in a daze. Their eyes were full of fear as they retreated. Boom! The long sword in Nie Tian's hand suddenly slashed down, and a sword shadow fell on the Soul Transformation Sect's crowd. A series of miserable screams rang out. Those who were hit by the sword shadow instantly turned into meat paste. Under the sword, more than a dozen true element realm cultivators died on the spot. Nie Tian's eyes emitted a cold light. He glanced at the crowd and coldly said, Those who do not disappear in 10 seconds die. Everyone from the Soul Transformation Sect reacted and instantly fell into chaos. Screams sounded one after another. In the blink of an eye, the Wolf Legion of thousands of people disappeared in an instant. The Vice Sect Master and Hall Master were dead. Who dared to stay here? Wasn't that courting death? One sword and one shout scared away thousands of Soul Transformation Sect's people. This was the deterrent power of Nie Tian at this time. The strong was awe-inspiring. The strength was terrifying. The crowd looked at Nie Tian and couldn't react for a long time. They had heard of Nie Tian's name before, and they had also heard of the things the latter had done. However, most people thought that these things were exaggerated. But now that they saw what Nie Tian had done, they realized that Nie Tian was actually so terrifying. He was even more terrifying than the rumors. Nie Tian didn't care about the others. He directly stepped onto the carriage and said to Qiu Shan, Let's go. This place was not suitable to stay for long. If the Soul Transformation Sect sent more people to chase after them, then it would be Sect Master Dongfang Yu who would personally take action. Nie Tian didn't have the confidence to fight Dongfang Yu. The carriage began to move slowly. Nie Tian sorted out his injuries and confirmed that Mo Tai and Mo Rushi were fine. Only then did he feel more at ease. The rest of the journey was very peaceful. A day later, Nie Tian finally saw the gates of Su Mi Spiritual Capital. The two sides of the outer city of Su Mi Spiritual Capital were packed with people. It was the day when the Su Mi Grand Assembly was about to begin. People from all 4 regions were desperately rushing to Su Mi Spiritual Capital. Nie Tian couldn't help but shake his head as he gazed at the city gate, where a long line stretched as far as the eye could see. Let's get off, Nie Tian said to Qiu Shan. Then, he let Mo Tai and Mo Rushi get off the carriage and prepare to walk over. Nie Tian had the red robe order and could directly enter the city. Just as Nie Tian and the others got off the carriage, a familiar voice suddenly sounded behind them. Nie Tian, City Lord, long time no see. It's you. Nie Tian turned his head, but what he saw was not a face, but a familiar mask. a faceless mask. The corners of his mouth curled into a faint smile as he said, "Who are you?" The person that Hu Shaoli said was looking for me is you. The person in front of him was the mysterious faceless man that Nyetian met in the chaotic abyss, Rui Qinyu's elder brother, Rui Jinsa. Rui Jinsa's name was also known to Nyetian from Rui Qinyu. Previously, Tawny told Nyetian that someone was looking for him and would be waiting for him in the outer city of Sumi spiritual capital. It seemed that this person was Rui Jinsa. "It's me," Rui Jinsa replied indifferently and said, "I have already dealt with the assassins here. They can enter the city safely." Nyetian frowned slightly. He was just worried that with the chaotic crowd, it would be very dangerous if there were assassins hiding here. Now, it seemed that Rui Jinsa had already solved the problem for him. However, Nyetian didn't know why Rui Jinsa was looking for him. Could it be that something happened to Rui Qinyu? Nyetian suddenly thought of Rui Qinyu, and his expression suddenly changed. Chapter 591. Nyetian suddenly thought of Rui Qinyu, and his expression couldn't help but change. "Qinyu is fine. I have other matters to discuss with you." Rui Qinyu saw the change in Nyetian's expression and guessed what he was thinking. "All right, wait for me here." Nyetian's eyes narrowed slightly. After agreeing, he decided to send Imo Tai and Imo Rushi back first before coming back to look for Rui Qinyu. Although Rui Qinyu had dealt with the surrounding assassins, Nyetian still didn't feel at ease. Even if he entered Sumi spiritual capital, he didn't dare to be careless. "Elder Nya." Just when they arrived at the city gate, a burly figure appeared. His voice was like a drum, and it was very recognizable. "Commander Zhao." When Nyetian saw the person's face clearly, he couldn't help but feel happy. It was the 7th commander of the Danwu Hall, Zhao Qua. When the guards saw Zhao Qua taking the initiative to greet Nyetian, they didn't dare to stop him and let him pass. Because of this, Nyetian didn't even have to use his red robe token. "Commander Zhao, I have some matters to attend to. Please escort them to Big Brother Guyi's residence." Nyetian didn't stand on ceremony and directly said to Zhao Qua, "No problem." Previously, when Nyetian gave Zhao Qua a heaven-tier martial art, the latter's attitude towards him was very respectful. He said to the guards beside him, "The few of you, escort these gentlemen away." Nyetian frowned slightly and smiled faintly. "Commander Zhao Qua, I don't feel at ease with them escorting them. It's better if you escort them personally." Zhao Qua was stunned for a moment before he bowed and said, "All right." Nyetian turned to Imo Rushi and Imo Tai and said, "Rushi, Lord Imo Tai, you go back first. I have something to take care of, and I'll be back soon." Then, he shot a glance at Xiao Shan, who nodded in understanding. "Nyetian, what exactly is his identity now?" Imo Tai looked at Nyetian's back and murmured, "Mister, you still don't know?" Nyetian City Lord is currently one of the 8 red-robed elders of the Apothecary Guild. Zhao Qua chuckled and said with a complacent expression on his face. Since Nyetian was his friend, he felt that it was a great honor for him to say so. Imo Tai was stunned at first, and then he lost his composure completely. He felt as if 10,000 elephants were galloping through his heart, and his face froze. He couldn't recover for a long time. A red-robed elder of the Alchemist Association. This status was very high, so high that Imo Tai could not imagine it. A red-clad elder. This was a status that Imo Tai could not even see when he raised his head. How could he have imagined that the good-for-nothing family head of Moyang City would one day become such a big shot? Nyetian turned around and saw that Raindrop was waiting for him. Furthermore, there was one more person beside Rain, Tawny. Nyetian looked at the two of them and didn't say anything. They understood each other. The 3 of them quickly left the outer city and arrived at a remote and uninhabited place. Nyetian felt very strange in his heart. Why was Raindrop looking for him? Furthermore, Raindrop was a very mysterious person. Back in the chaotic abyss, Ruiyu had fought against Wanqi Rong and the others. She hadn't been at a disadvantage at all, and she was very familiar with Wanqi Rong's 6-word ghost language technique. He also mentioned Ling Xian Tian Pavilion's Pavilion Master, Netherworld Ghost, and seemed to know Netherworld Ghost. Now that Raindrop and Tawny were together, this made Nye Tian even more puzzled about his identity. Could this guy really be related to Ling Xian Tian Pavilion? Raindrop and Rui Qianyu were related by blood, so he was undoubtedly the latter's elder brother. However, it was very strange that he survived when the bloody Slaughter Palace was destroyed. Nye Tian sensed Raindrop's strength and was slightly surprised. He had actually reached the second tier of the spirit wheel. Back in the chaotic abyss, Raindrop's strength was only at the 9th tier of the primordial element. In half a year, he had reached the second tier of the spirit wheel. This martial arts talent was indeed worthy of someone with a 9-yang constitution. Nye Tian City Lord, I know you are very puzzled about my identity, but I can't tell you too much now. I can only tell you that I am not your enemy. Raindrop's eyes flashed with a sharp light as he said, very straightforwardly, I believe you. Nye Tian City Lord smiled faintly and didn't ask too much. He said, tell me, why are you looking for me? Raindrop seemed to smile and said, Nye Tian City Lord is indeed a smart person. Then I will not waste any more time. As he spoke, he suddenly took out something in his hand. It was actually a medicinal herb. This was a very strange medicinal herb. It was dark green in color and emitted a strange luster. Its shape was very strange. It had 4 limbs and a head. When it extended, it was actually in the shape of a human. The human-shaped flower was struggling with all its 4 limbs as if it was in great pain. Moreover, there was a faint, mournful cry in the surrounding space. Nye Tian frowned slightly as he felt the medicinal herb's aura. Suddenly, he thought of something and his expression suddenly changed. He blurted out 3 words, Devil God Flower. The aura of the human-shaped flower in front of him reminded him of a kind of legendary flower, the Devil God Flower. The Devil God Flower was an 8th-tier medicinal herb. According to legend, it took 100 years to take root, 100 years to grow leaves, and 100 years to bloom. The strangest thing was that the Devil God Flower was different from other flowers and plants. It did not absorb nutrients from the soil, but instead fed on the essence and blood of spiritual beasts. It was said that the Devil God Flower could create illusion traps to attract spiritual beasts and then let them die in the illusion. It grew with the essence and blood of spiritual beasts as nourishment. Because the Devil God Flower was nourished by the essence and blood of spiritual beasts, it contained the most violent spiritual power in the world. No wonder when Nye Tian looked at the Devil God Flower just now, he had an illusion that he was deeply immersed in the illusion. You actually know about this flower? Ruo Zhen Su was very surprised. She did not expect Nye Tian to know about the Devil God Flower. Nye Tian nodded slightly and asked, where did you get the Devil God Flower? That is not something you should be concerned about. Ruo Zhen Su smiled faintly and said, I want to use the Devil God Flower to make a deal with you. What kind of deal? Nye Tian's gaze froze. There was an unconcealable passion in his eyes. If he could obtain the Devil God Flower, he was confident that he could increase his strength to the 9th tier of the primordial element or even the spirit wheel realm within a month. The Summer Grand Meeting was about to begin. At this time, Nye Tian urgently needed to increase his strength. Hence, he was very eager to obtain the Devil God Flower. I want you to help me kill someone. Ruo Zhen Su's eyes flashed with a cold light. Her tone also became gloomy. Help you kill someone? Nye Tian was slightly stunned. Immediately after, he laughed and said, are you making fun of me? Ruo Zhen Su's strength was the 2nd tier of the spirit wheel. Furthermore, he had the 9-yang constitution. His true strength was comparable to that of a 3rd or even a 4th-tier spirit wheel warrior. With his strength, he could kill anyone he wanted. Why would he need Nye Tian to kill someone? Do I sound like I am joking? Ruo Zhen Su said coldly. I cannot kill that person. I can only ask someone to do it. Nye Tian's gaze froze. His expression became serious. He said, who is the person you want to kill? Chapter 592. Yu Qianjin. Nye Tian was dazed for a second when he heard the name. When he heard the explanation, his pupils contracted. He didn't expect that the person Ruo Yu wanted to kill was the son of Ling Xian Tian Pavilion's master. Yugue? Nie Tian had long since known that Ruyu and Nether Ghost knew each other, but he hadn't known about their relationship. Could it be that there was some kind of deep-seated hatred between them? Mr. Ruo Yu, Tawny was also surprised. She looked at Ruo Yu and didn't know what to say. After a few seconds of silence, Nie Tian calmed down and asked in a deep voice, "May I ask why?" "I'm sorry, I can't tell you," Ruo Yu said calmly. Nie Tian frowned slightly. His eyes flickered as he said indifferently, "Then I'm sorry. I won't help you kill anyone." Nie Tian was not a tool to kill people. Even if the monster god flower was tempting enough, he wouldn't agree to help others kill people, unless he was sure that the person he wanted to kill was someone who deserved to die. Even if no one asked him to, he would still kill that person. Yu Gui was the master of Ling Xian Tian Pavilion, but that didn't mean that his son, Yu Tianjin, deserved to die. 5 poison blood infant. Ruo Yu seemed to have expected Nie Tian's answer. She didn't find it strange and said a name. Nie Tian was surprised and asked, "How do you know about the 5 poison blood infant?" At the same time, Nie Tian released a cold chi. If Ruo Yu was related to the 5 poison blood infant, then even if he was Rui Qianyu's brother, Nie Tian wouldn't let him go. "Don't be impulsive," Ruo Yu said calmly. "I want to tell you that Yu Qianjin provided the hundreds of thousands of babies that Wu Feng used to make the 5 poison blood infant." "Huh?" Nie Tian frowned and stared at Ruo Yu's eyes to see if she was lying. If Yu Tianjin had really done what True Case Rain had said, then he would be a dead man. After a long moment of silence, Nie Tian said, "Give me the demon god flower." True Rain handed the demonic god flower to Nie Tian. Her eyes flickered as she said, "Aren't you going to ask how strong Yu Tianjin is?" "There's no need." Nie Tian put away the demon god flower and said, "You just need to tell me, where is he now?" Nie Tian didn't care about Yu Tianjin's strength, identity, or background. He only knew that this person was dead for sure. Rain was taken aback for a moment before asking, "Do you want to kill someone right now? What do you think?" Nie Tian asked back, "It was just killing a person. Did he have to wait until next year?" Ruo Zhansu was slightly speechless and said, "Yu Tianjin cannot die now. You must kill him at the Meru martial meet." "Why?" Nie Tian was taken aback for a moment. It was a little strange. To kill someone at the Meru martial meet, this was strange. "Because I want the whole world to know that you killed him," Ruo Zhan said indifferently. Nie Tian's mouth twitched. He said indifferently, "This reason I accept." "Very well, then it's a deal. Goodbye." Ruo Zhan nodded with a smile and turned to leave. "Ruo Zhansu," Nie Tian shouted at this moment and asked, "Can I ask, what is your relationship with Tawny?" Just now he had heard Tawny call Ruo Zhansu as mistress. Moreover, she was very respectful, as if she was a subordinate. "Mistress Ruo and I." Tawny was the first to speak, but she was interrupted by Ruo Zhansu. Ruo Zhansu said, "I and Spirit Ghost are collaborators. Lady Shaoli was sent by Spirit Ghost to monitor me." Nie Tian raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Do you think I will believe you? Whether you believe me or not is up to you." Ruo Zhan said and left. Nie Tian looked at Ruo Zhan's back and frowned. He said in his heart, "Ruo Zhansu, what secrets do you have? Even if you don't tell me, I will reveal them one by one." Nie Tian City Lord, I forgot to tell you, Yu Tianjin is already in Meru Ling capital, and he is together with Qianya. If you're lucky, you will meet him before the Meru martial meet starts. At this time, a voice suddenly sounded in Nie Tian's heart. It was Ruo Zhansu. Yu Tianjin is already in Meru Ling capital, and he is together with Rui Qianyu. Nie Tian was stunned. This news made him immediately lose his calm. His figure moved and disappeared in an instant. Meru Ling capital, the biggest restaurant, Square Restaurant. The restaurant was full of customers. Many people gathered together and discussed spiritedly. The Meru Grand Meeting is about to start. All the geniuses of the 4 regions have arrived. It is bound to be a fierce battle. That's right. I heard that the prizes for the Meru Grand Meeting are very generous. If you can win first place, you will really soar to the sky. It It is said that the geniuses of the four great families will participate in the Meru Martial Meet. I wonder who will be able to win first place. In the Meru Grand Meeting, all the competitions were held at the same time. But the most eye-catching one was undoubtedly the Meru Martial Meet. Just as everyone was discussing, an angry roar suddenly came from the restaurant. Rui Qianyu, what do you want before you are willing to talk to me? His enraged voice was like a thunderclap. Everyone felt a roar in their ears. Everyone looked towards the source of the voice and saw a black-faced young man roaring at a woman in white. The woman in white sat there calmly. Her expression was indifferent, as if she did not hear the roar of the person in front of her. She looked to be around 20 years old. Just sitting there made people have an urge to suffocate. She was too beautiful. It was just that her whole body emitted a cold aura, like an ice-cold snow mountain. Looking at the black-faced young man again, his appearance was passable. It was just that his skin was dark, which made people feel uncomfortable. The crowd compared the appearance of the black-faced young man and the woman in white, and couldn't help but sigh. Damn it, the little cabbage has been taken by a pig. Sigh. A flower stuck in cow dung. The key is that this lump of cow dung doesn't know how to cherish it. He's shouting here. He's simply attracting hatred. The black-faced young man frowned. His whole body erupted with a tyrannical aura. Like a gust of wind, it swept out in all directions. The tables and chairs around him swayed and flew up. After landing on the ground, they turned into splinters. What a strong aura! The crowd's eyes narrowed. Their faces were aghast. Just by relying on the aura of his whole body, he had destroyed all the tables and chairs. The black-faced young man was very strong. Whoever dares to speak again, die. The black-faced young man roared. The aura of his whole body was tyrannical and cold. The crowd's heart trembled. They did not dare to speak anymore. If Tian was here, he would immediately recognize that this woman in white was no one else but Rui Qianyu. Chapter 593. Rui Qianyu sat there indifferently, as if everything around her had nothing to do with her. Her eyes were extremely cold, causing people's hearts to tremble and immediately stay away from her. Rui Qianyu, don't think that just because you are Ryu Jun's sister, I won't dare to touch you. If you push me too far, I'll do the same to you. Yu Tianjin's eyes were filled with anger, like a wild beast that couldn't find a target to vent his anger on. A few months ago, Yu Tianjin went to see Rui Qianyu and accidentally saw Rui Qianyu. At first glance, he was shocked and wanted to pursue her. Unfortunately, Rui Qianyu was like a block of ice that wouldn't melt for 1,000 years. No matter what he did, she wouldn't say a word to him. He chased after Rui Qianyu all the way to Sumi Ling capital, and, at the same time, to participate in the Sumi Martial Meet. This time, coming to the Shumi Spirit capital, Yu Tianjin was bound to obtain the championship of the Shumi Martial Meet. As for the three monsters of Sumi Ling capital, in his eyes, they were all trash, not worth mentioning. Rui Qianyu, do you have someone you like? Tell me who he is, and I'll kill him. Seeing that Rui Qianyu still didn't speak, Yu Tianjin roared, his expression becoming more and more frenzied. Rui Qianyu was as cold as ice, not saying a word. You. At this time, a discordant voice rang out. A figure stood out and said, Charcoal Head. Charcoal Head, this lady doesn't like you. Why are you pestering me? If you continue to pester me, don't blame me for being impolite. Everyone turned to look at the source of the voice. The person who had spoken was a handsome young man in his 20s. He looked very decent, but when his gaze inadvertently swept over Raindrop Thousand Leaves, an unconcealable thirst appeared in his eyes. Obviously, this person wanted to be a hero to save the beauty and win her heart. Yu Tianjin's expression darkened, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He chuckled and said, This young master has a belly full of anger and nowhere to vent it. And here you are? I want to see how much weight you have to dare to jump out and act like a big shot. Oomph. The young man sneered and released his aura. In an instant, an enormous force filled the entire restaurant. Everyone felt this immense power, and their hearts trembled violently. They exclaimed, Divine Wheel Space. This young man actually released a divine will space. He was a divine wheel expert. No one would have thought that this young man would actually reach the spirit wheel realm. A warrior of the spirit wheel realm? Tianjin was slightly stunned. The corner of his mouth twitched, revealing a playful smile. Charcoal head, let's settle this in one move. Whoever wins will get this beauty. How about it? The handsome young man smiled sinisterly. His eyes scanned Rui Qinyu from head to toe, revealing a fiery expression. Rui Qinyu, did you hear that? He is a warrior of the spirit wheel realm. If I win against him, you will be mine. Yu Tianjin chuckled, appearing very confident. Rui Qinyu sat there without any change in her expression. Yu Tianjin frowned and immediately looked at the handsome young man. In a loud voice, he said, Yu Tianjin, do not fight nameless people. Tell me your name. Dragon Fifth, the handsome young man said indifferently. His eyes were full of disdain. Dragon Fifth. At this moment, an elder in cyan beside Dragon Fifth suddenly warned, this person is extraordinary. Don't be careless. Dragon Fifth glanced at the elder in cyan and said indifferently, don't worry, I know what to do. The elder in cyan nodded slightly, but his gaze towards Yu Tianjin became more cautious. No one knew what he was thinking. Yu Tianjin noticed the existence of the elder in cyan. He glanced at him, and his eyes narrowed slightly. Then he chuckled and said, old mister, don't worry. I will not hurt him. Yu Tianjin looked rough, but in fact, he was sinister. He could see that the elder in cyan was extraordinary, so he did not dare to be too arrogant. Arrogant! Dragon Fifth's eyes darkened, and he shouted coldly. His whole body's aura suddenly soared. What a strong aura! The crowd trembled. They felt the unparalleled aura and retreated one after another. At this moment, the steward of the restaurant came over. Seeing the situation, he did not dare to step forward and hurriedly ran back to ask the steward. The strength of the first level of the spirit wheel is indeed strong. Unfortunately, in front of me, it is not enough. Yu Tianjin chuckled. The disdain in his eyes intensified. He did not take Dragon Fifth seriously at all. This person is so arrogant. He is not even afraid of a warrior of the spirit wheel realm. The crowd was shocked. Yu Tianjin did not look very old. He was about 25 or 26 years old. Could it be that his strength was also of the spirit wheel realm? This was too terrifying. In the blink of an eye, two warriors of the spirit wheel realm in their 20s had appeared. How could the geniuses of Sumi Ling City endure this? Seeing that Yu Tianjin didn't put him his eyes at all, Dragon Fifth was instantly enraged. The aura around his body rose once more. Then his figure moved, and he threw a palm out. A copious amount of palm shadows rolled out from the void and smashed towards Yu Tianjin. Too weak. Facing Dragon Fifth's palm, Yu Tianjin sneered. He raised his arm and directly punched out. The overbearing fist shadow was cold and violent, like a dragon coming out of the sea. Boom! In the void, the palm shadow and the fist shadow collided. However, the power of the palm shadow was obviously much weaker. It was directly smashed by the fist shadow. A tyrannical force pressed towards Dragon Fifth. Bang! With a muffled sound, Dragon Fifth directly flew out. After landing, he almost could not stand. Dragon Fifth steadied his body. He was not injured, but his face was very ugly. There was a lump of stuffy air in his chest that he could not breathe out. Originally, he wanted to be a hero to save the beauty. Instead, he was punched out. This person was really thrown into the toilet. You lost. Yu Tianjin glanced at Dragon Fifth. Immediately, his eyes turned to Rui Qinyu and said, she is mine. Dragon Fifth's eyes were bloodshot. He could not help but look at the old man in green behind him. However, the old man had no intention of making a move. Instead, he stood up, slightly bowed to Yu Tianjin, and said, thank you for being merciful. Being merciful? When the crowd heard this, they were shocked. Just now, Yu Tianjin not only defeated Dragon Fifth, but also showed mercy. My God, if he had used his full strength, wouldn't Dragon Fifth die on the spot? Dragon Fifth was already at the first tier of the spirit wheel. How terrifying was Yu Tianjin's strength? The crowd was stunned and looked at Yu Tianjin with even more fear. Oh, it's so lively here. Just when the crowd was stunned, an extremely disharmonious voice with a strong sense of ridicule was heard. The crowd was stunned. They turned to look at the person who spoke. It was actually a young man of 17 or 18 years old. Chapter 594. When Rui Qinyu saw Nie Tian suddenly appear, there was a hint of expression on her cold face. Yu Tianjin just happened to notice this scene. Yu Tianjin then looked at Nie Tian with undisguised murderous intent in his eyes. He had been following Rui Qinyu for a few days, and the latter had not said a word. However, when Nie Tian came, she not only spoke, but even her expression changed. She even called out Nie Tian's name. This was unacceptable to Yu Tianjin. A beautiful woman like Rui Qinyu should be with a peerless genius like Yu Tianjin. Who was Nie Tian? Why did he make Rui Qinyu speak and get excited? Because of Rui Qinyu's attitude toward Nie Tian, Yu Tianjin had murderous intent in his heart. Nie Tian glanced at Yu Tianjin, but it was only for a moment. Then his eyes stopped on Dragon 5th and finally fell on the elder in green behind Dragon 5th. The elder in green was skinny and had a sharp gaze. His strength was actually at the 6th level of the divine wheel, which was very terrifying. Among all the experts Nie Tian had met, only Zhang Tingyin of the Elixir Martial Hall, Meng Fanshun, the president of the Alchemist Guild, and Mo Zhaojing, the patriarch of the Mo clan, could suppress him. With such strength, he could easily become an inner court elder in any of the great clans. At this moment, the elder in green was also looking at Nie Tian. A cold, murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He then said, Nie Tian, Tianluo City Lord. Nie Tian noticed the other party's murderous intent, and his eyes narrowed slightly. They clearly met for the first time. Why did he have such an inexplicable, murderous intent? Nie Tian, Tianluo City Lord. When the crowd heard the elder in green mention Nie Tian's identity, the entire restaurant suddenly became silent. This name was too resounding. Right now, it was already the most famous name in Shumi's spirit capital. Just the title of a red-clothed elder was enough to make people revere him. Nie Tian didn't care about the crowd's reaction. Instead, he stared at the cyan-robed old man and asked with a faint smile, "Do we know each other?" The green-robed old man's body trembled inexplicably as if he was suppressing his rage. He didn't say anything and instead transmitted his voice to Nie Tian. Dragon Sky. Dragon Sky. Hearing this name, Nie Tian's expression stiffened slightly. He already understood a little. The green-robed old man in front of him must have a close relationship with Long Sky. No wonder he could not hide his killing intent the moment he saw Nie Tian. "My name is Shangwan Yan. Long Sky is my disciple. I will retrieve his dragon-armed saber for him." The green-robed old man directly said his name. His tone was low and cold, but it was full of dominance. At the same time, it also contained a strong sense of threat. Of course, his words were only transmitted to Nie Tian. No one else knew. The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched coldly. He also transmitted his voice. "Very good. It seems that you're also from Heaven Burial Association. I really want to know where Wei Yangzi is." Nie Tian already knew that Long Sky was from Heaven Burial Association. Since Shangwan Yin was Long Sky's teacher, he was naturally from Heaven Burial Association as well. Heaven Burial Association was the only underground organization in the 3,000 small worlds in the land of bloody massacre. It was rumored that they were even more terrifying than Ling Xian Tian Pavilion. Elder Li, who was by Rui Qinyu's side, had died at the hands of Wei Yangzi. This hatred had always been engraved in Nie Tian's mind. He originally wanted to wait until he was strong enough before finding trouble with Heaven Burial Association. However, since the latter had come, he naturally would not run away. "He is my junior brother. Why are you looking for him?" Shangwan Yin was slightly stunned. He did not expect Nie Tian to know that he was from Heaven Burial Association. "Revenge," Nie Tianling replied coldly. The corner of Shangwan Yin's mouth involuntarily curled up. He revealed complete contempt and mocked. "With just you? He naturally perceived that Nie Tian's strength was at the 6th level of true essence. It was very heaven-defying for Nie Tian to be able to reach this kind of strength at his age. However, this strength was simply not enough in Shang Wanyan's eyes. With just me, Nie Tian's reply was very simple. It was filled with overbearing confidence. Shang Wanyan felt the determination in Nie Tian's eyes. His gaze actually trembled. Who would say domineering words? However, the determination in the heart could not be faked. What Nie Tian displayed right now was full of determination. Young age, limited strength, but able to be fearless. This kind of mentality cannot be possessed by someone without great determination. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Right at this moment, a deep voice sounded out. Subsequently, an old man stepped out. Everyone looked over. The person who spoke was an old man with a short stature. His clothes were tattered, and he carried a wine gourd. He looked extremely dirty and messy, like an old beggar. Isn't this the old beggar who was begging at the entrance of the restaurant yesterday? Why'd he come to join in the fun as well? The crowd was stunned. They immediately recognized the old man's identity and roared with laughter. Nie Tian looked at the old man. He noticed that there wasn't the slightest fluctuation of origin energy around the old man. However, the space around the old man seemed to have solidified. Nothing could think of approaching his body. This old man's strength is unfathomable. Nie Tian's gaze trembled. He made a guess in his heart. It's you. Shang Wanyan stared at the old man for a long time. Finally, he thought of a person. His expression became astonished as he said in astonishment, Xian Wuji. Shang Wanyan, since you know it's me, why haven't you scrammed? Xian Wuji shouted coldly. His body shook slightly, and the filth on his body instantly disappeared. In an instant, he transformed from a beggar into a grandmaster. Shang Wanyan looked at Xian Wuji. He wanted to get angry, but he didn't dare. His expression was extremely ugly. What? Do you still want to make a move? Xian Wuji said calmly, and a mighty force swept over. Everyone felt their divine senses tremble, and their expressions changed abruptly. Pooh! Shang Wanyan's face flushed red. In the end, he couldn't bear this force. His body swayed, and he actually vomited a mouthful of blood. What's going on? The crowd's gaze trembled. They didn't know what had happened. Shang Wanyan's strength made even Yu Tianjin fear him. Why was he standing there and vomiting blood for no reason? Nie Tian looked at Xian Wuji. He was puzzled in his heart. Who is this person? How can his strength be so tyrannical? He seems to be even stronger than Zhang Tingyin and Meng Fanchen. Is there another expert in Su Mi Ling who is comparable to Tang Hao and Mo Zhaojing? Third uncle, are you all right? When Dragon Fifth saw Shang Wanyan suddenly vomiting blood, he was so scared that his face turned pale. He hurriedly went up to support him. Let's go, Shang Wanyan said coldly. He didn't dare to stay any longer and turned to leave. At least he's tactful. Xian Wuji smiled faintly. He retracted his chi and immediately looked at Nie Tian. He said, Nie Tian, are you the new red-clothed elder who joined the guild? Nie Tian nodded and said, Old Xian is a member of the guild. Xian Wuji directly called the Alchemist Guild a guild. This meant that he was a member of the Alchemist Guild. Chapter 595. Nie Tian couldn't guess Xian Wuji's identity, and his expression became even more confused. Yu Tianjin was even more confused, and, at the same time, his eyes revealed an unconcealable fear. He was very clear about Shang Wanyan's strength, but he was actually forced to vomit blood by Xian Wuji. It was really strange. Xian Wuji smiled faintly, seeing what Nie Tian was thinking, and said, You can't guess my identity, but you have something I'm interested in. Nie Tian couldn't help but be surprised. He and Xian Wuji had only met by chance. How could he have something that the latter was interested in? But he didn't ask, and said, Old Xian, let me deal with something first. You can talk about it later, okay? Xian Wuji obviously had no malicious intent, so Nie Tian didn't hesitate. Okay, Xian Wuji agreed faintly. and then his eyes fell on Yu Tianjin, who was quite frightened. Nie Tian walked towards Rui Qinyu, sat down calmly, and smiled faintly. Qinya, long time no see. In fact, the two had only been separated for a dozen days, and Rui Qinyu's strength had risen again, reaching the 9th level of true essence. This strength, even in Shumi Spirit Capital, was very strong. Rui Qinyu's expression became cold again, and a pair of strange blue and red eyes flashed, looking at Nie Tian, and said directly, "Help me get rid of this person." This person, of course, referred to Yu Tianjin. "No problem." Nie Tian smiled bitterly, nodding slightly. It seemed that Rui Qinyu had been troubled by Yu Tianjin these days, or else she wouldn't have said it directly. "Thank you," Rui Qinyu said coldly, and then slowly took a sip of tea, as if thinking for a moment, and then asked, "Where do you live?" "Hong, the Elder Gu Yi's mansion," Nie Tian replied. "I'll look for you when I have time. Goodbye." Rui Qinyu stood up and left the restaurant. Nie Tian was already familiar with Rui Qinyu's coldness. She had too much hatred for him. If she couldn't let go of this hatred, she would never be happy. "Rui Qinyu, where are you going?" Seeing that Rui Qinyu was about to leave, Yu Tianjin immediately reacted and wanted to follow her. "Yu Tianjin, you can't leave." Nie Tian immediately stood up and shouted cold, "Courting death." Yu Tianjin spun around to look at Nie Tian. His eyes flashed with a cold light as he punched out. A beam of fist light shot out towards Nie Tian. He already hated Nie Tian to the core. He was sure that the latter was the person Rui Qinyu liked. Otherwise, Rui Qinyu wouldn't only talk to Nie Tian. Now that Nie Tian had spoken up to stop him, his hatred for Nie Tian grew even more intense. Therefore, he directly attacked, intending to kill Nie Tian. Yu Tianjin's attack was overbearing and ruthless. He didn't care about Nie Tian's identity at all. Yu Tianjin didn't care about the Hong E Elder of the Alchemist Guild. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. His body trembled, and a terrifying sword intent burst out. However, before he could make a move, a vast and boundless force instantly descended and directly blocked the terrifying fist radiance. "You want to hurt the Hong E Elder of the Guild in front of I? Do you think I'm invisible?" Xin Wuji shouted coldly. His whole body's aura enveloped Yu Tianjin. Yu Tianjin suddenly felt a strong pressure that made it hard for him to breathe. "Lord Jun." Yu Tianjin's face turned red, but he held his breath and shouted. Xin Wuji smiled faintly and said, "Don't shout. If I don't kill you, the person secretly protecting you won't dare to come out." "Huh?" Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. There was actually someone secretly protecting Yu Tianjin. Even he didn't notice the existence of this person. He had already sensed that Yu Tianjin was at the 2nd tier of the Divine Wheel and seemed to be about to break through to the 3rd tier. Although this person was very strong, it wasn't enough to make Nie Tian fear him. After all, he had just killed a warrior at the 2nd tier of the Divine Wheel. But if there was someone secretly protecting Yu Tianjin, then this person's strength must be much higher than Yu Tianjin's, at least above the 5th tier of the Divine Wheel. No wonder Yu Tianjin was so arrogant. It turned out that there was someone secretly protecting him. If Xin Wuji hadn't appeared and Nie Tian and Yu Tianjin fought, and that protector had appeared, Nie Tian would be in danger. No matter how powerful Nie Tian was, he wouldn't be able to fight against a high-level Divine Wheel warrior. Fortunately, Xin Wuji was here. Otherwise, Nie Tian would have probably failed miserably. Yu Tianjin was even more shocked when he saw that Xin Wuji had already sent someone in the dark and pointed him out. Lord Jun didn't appear. This undoubtedly meant that his strength was below Xin Wuji's, and he didn't dare to show himself. At this moment, unless Xin Wuji wanted to kill Yu Tianjin, this Lord Jun wouldn't show himself. Xin Wuji smiled faintly and said, "Xiaohei, Elder Nidan won't let you go. I have to trouble you to stay here for a while." Yu Tianjin flew into a rage out of humiliation. He could only watch helplessly as Rainy Thousand Leaves left, unable to move. He was like an enraged rooster, all the feathers on his body standing on end. Nie Tian watched as Rui Qinyu's figure disappeared. After a few minutes, He was sure that it would be difficult to find Yu Tianjin again. Then he said to Xian Wuji, "Elder Xian, thank you." Xian Wuji nodded and smiled, his aura dissipating. Yu Tianjin couldn't find Rui Qinyu anymore. He stared at Nye Tian coldly with bloodshot eyes. His body was shaking, but he didn't dare to do anything. He shouted angrily, "Bastard, don't let me see you again." After that, he turned around angrily. "Wait!" Nye Tian flashed and appeared in front of Yu Tianjin. He was only a few meters away from Yu Tianjin. Nye Tian's eyes flashed with coldness. He said a name word by word, "5 poison blood infant." Huh? Yu Tianjin was surprised. "How do you know about the 5 poison blood infant?" Nye Tian saw his reaction. The coldness in his eyes intensified. He asked coldly, "You provided the babies that Wu Feng used?" Yu Tianjin couldn't hide his surprise. Then, a fierce expression appeared on his face. He said indifferently, "So what? It's you. You go to die." Nye Tian's body was as cold as ice. His eyes were full of anger. "Just you?" Yu Tianjin sneered. Then he looked at Xian Wuji. His expression clearly said, "If it weren't for him, you would already be a corpse." Nye Tian ignored his mockery and said cold, "At the summer martial meet, you and I will fight to the death. We won't stop until one of us is dead." Yu Tianjin's eyes flickered with extreme contempt. He didn't expect that a warrior in the 6th tier of the spiritual wheel realm would dare to challenge a warrior in the 2nd tier of the spirit wheel realm. Wasn't he courting death? Okay. Without the slightest hesitation, Yu Tianjin agreed. As far as he was concerned, Nye Tian was courting death. After that, Yu Tianjin didn't stay any longer. He turned around and left. Nye Tian didn't try to stop him. Instead, he stared at the man's back, his eyes filled with killing intent. Chapter 596. Xian Wuji furrowed his brows when he heard that Nye Tian and Yu Tianjin were going to fight to the death. "Elder Nye Tian, do you really want to fight to the death with him?" Although Xian Wuji didn't know what Nye Tian and Yu Tianjin were talking about, he could tell that Yu Tianjin must have done something to infuriate Nye Tian. That was why they were fighting to the death. However, Nye Tian's strength was much weaker than Yu Tianjin's, so Xian Wuji couldn't help but worry for him. Nye Tian nodded, a determined look in his eyes. "Yeah." After a while, Nye Tian calmed down and said, "Elder Xian, there are too many people here. Let's find another place to talk." The two left the square restaurant and came to a remote place. "There's no one else here," Nye Tian said, seeing the worry in Elder Xian's eyes. "If you have something to say, just say it." Xian Wuji exhaled, and his expression became serious, even panicked. After a moment of silence, he finally opened his mouth. "Elder Nye Tian, you have an interspatial ring on you. Where did you get it?" "Interspatial ring?" Nye Tian was stunned and didn't know how to react. "Elder Xian, I have many interspatial rings on me." "Which one are you talking about?" Almost every time Nye Tian killed a person, he would loot everything from them. Therefore, he had too many interspatial rings on him. Xian Wuji paid attention to Nye Tian just because of one interspatial ring. This meant that the interspatial ring was very important to him. "I'm talking about the spiritual dragon ring," Xian Wuji said nervously. "Spiritual dragon ring?" Nye Tian still didn't understand. Xian Wuji calmed himself down and said, "The interspatial ring with a spiritual dragon carved on it." Nye Tian's eyes narrowed. A interspatial ring appeared in his hand. Looking at it, there was indeed a lifelike little dragon carved on it. This ring was the one that the previous president of the Alchemist Guild, Hui Yuan, had given to Nye Tian before he died. He had instructed Nye Tian to pass it to Meng Fanchun no matter what. At that time, Nye Tian did not pay much attention to it. Now that he sensed the ring, there was actually a strong dragon chi within it. It seemed to be some kind of seal. Before Hui Yuan died, he had entrusted the ring to Nye Tian. This clearly showed that this was no ordinary ring. It really is the spiritual dragon ring. Seeing the ring in Nye Tian's hand, Xian Wuji's expression became heated, but then he panicked and asked, "Where did you get this ring?" Nye Tian's eyes narrowed when he saw Xian Wuji's reaction. He asked, "You know Lord Hui Yuan?" "Brother Hua." Xian Wuji's face suddenly changed when he heard Hui Yuan's name. He suddenly grabbed Niet Tian's shoulders and almost roared. Did Big Brother Hui give you that ring? Where is he now? The current Xian Wuji was almost crazy. He no longer had the bearing of a master. Niet Tian saw his reaction and had a guess about his identity. Xian Wuji was obviously a member of the Alchemist Guild. He even called Meng Fanxian by his name. His status must be very high. Therefore, Niet Tian concluded that Xian Wuji's identity was very likely to be the previous hall master of the Danwu Hall. This identity not only matched Xian Wuji's strength, but also his age. Xian Wuji cared so much about Hui Yuan. This meant that the relationship between the two was extraordinary. Elder Xian, calm down. Niet Tian was afraid that Xian Wuji couldn't accept the fact that Hui Yuan was dead, so he yelled for him to calm down. Xian Wuji's expression froze for a moment. He seemed to have guessed something. Emptiness appeared in his eyes, as if he had lost all his faith. His body suddenly swayed, and he almost fell. He said in a daze, Brother Hua, he's dead. Hui Yuan never left the spiritual dragon ring. Now that it was in Niet Tian's hand, it undoubtedly meant that he was dead. Niet Tian had a sorrowful expression as he nodded. Xian Wuji was stunned on the spot. He seemed to have aged several decades in an instant, as if he had gone mad. After a long time, he finally had a slight reaction. His eyes looked normal as he asked, What did Brother Hua say before he died? Before Elder Hua died, he asked me to hand the spiritual dragon ring to President Meng Fanxian. Niet Tian said truthfully. Right. Xian Wuji seemed to have suddenly thought of something. There was a trace of excitement in his eyes as he said, Let's go find Meng Fanxian now. After saying that, Xian Wuji didn't care about Niet Tian's reaction. He turned around and sprinted towards the Alchemist Guild. Niet Tian had a puzzled expression. What exactly was this spiritual dragon ring? Was it really that important? Without giving it much thought, Niet Tian hurried after them. A moment later, the two arrived at the Alchemist Guild. The guards of the guild recognized Niet Tian and didn't stop him. Niet Tian. Just as they arrived at the guild hall, a crisp voice sounded and Meng Xueqing rushed over excitedly. Behind Meng Xueqing were two familiar figures. They were Yang Kai and Yang Zixiao. Elder Niet Tian. Yang Kai was very happy when he saw Niet Tian's figure and strode over. Niet Tian saw that Yang Zixiao's complexion had improved a lot. It seemed that the 6 Yang extremes had been effective. The 100 void qi in his body had been suppressed. Xiao come and greet your benefactor, Yang Kai shouted. He was in a very good mood. Yang Zixiao followed and bowed deeply to Niet Tian, respectfully saying, Zixiao, thanks benefactor. Niet Tian nodded lightly and said to Yang Kai, Old Yang, I have an important matter to discuss with President Meng. As for Yang Zixiao's matter, I will look for you in a few days. Yang Zixiao's 100 void physique was only temporarily suppressed. If he wanted to truly control it, it would depend on his own willpower. Most importantly, he had to cultivate a martial art that could restrain the 100 void qi. Currently, Niet Tian didn't have a suitable martial art. Yang Kai nodded and noticed Xian Wuji's existence. His face stiffened, and he said in shock, Hall Master Xian. Niet Tian guessed correctly. Xian Wuji was the former Hall Master of the Danwu Hall. Xian Wuji ignored Yang Kai and walked directly to the inner hall of the guild hall. Elder Niet Tian, what happened? Yang Kai was startled and looked at Niet Tian. Old Yang, old Xian, and I have something to discuss with President Meng. We don't have time to explain, Niet Tian said and quickly followed. The two figures quickly arrived at the inner hall. At this moment, Meng Fanxian was sitting in the center of the inner hall. When he saw Niet Tian walking over, he immediately shouted, Elder Niet Tian, you are finally back. Niet Tian had been in Peaceful City for many days. Meng Fanxian was still worried about him just now. Of course, he was happy to see him now. But when Meng Fanxian saw the face beside Niet Tian, the smile on his face froze. Then, he became even more happy. Uncle Xian. Meng Fanxian walked over and was very excited. Xian Wuji's face was solemn. He said in a deep voice, Niet Tian, take out the spirit dragon ring. Tian nodded slightly and took out the spirit dragon ring. It floated above his palm. Chapter 597. When Meng Fanshan saw that Tian was actually holding the spirit dragon ring in his hand, his expression suddenly became blank. Tian frowned slightly and gave him enough time. After a while, when Meng Fanshan had calmed down a little, Tian walked forward and handed the spiritual dragon ring to him without saying a word. Meng Fanshan took the spiritual dragon ring with both hands, and tears streamed down his face. He hesitated for a long time before he finally mustered up his courage and said with a trembling voice, "Teacher." Meng Fanshan choked with sobs before he could finish his sentence. His mouth was still open, but he couldn't make a sound. "Elder Hua, let's go." Tian nodded helplessly and said in a deep voice, "Teacher." Meng Fanshan wailed. His body swayed, and he almost fell. Although Meng Fanshan had expected this when he saw the spiritual dragon ring, he still couldn't accept the news when he heard it with his own ears. "President Meng, I'm sorry for your loss." Tian quickly stepped forward and supported Meng Fanshan. In the face of extreme pain, even a heavenly emperor powerhouse wouldn't be able to bear it. Xian Wuji was also grief-stricken and didn't say a word for a long time. The short yet long silence caused the air to be filled with sorrow. After a while, Meng Fanshan's expression softened a little. He looked at the spiritual dragon ring in his hand with anger in his eyes and said, "Teacher was a spirit will powerhouse and was only a few decades away from the end of his life. Why did he die? For no reason. Elder Tian, please tell me what happened." Tian let out a deep breath and thought about how to tell the truth. "Teacher was killed, right?" Meng Fanshan roared when he saw Tian's expression. "Who did it?" The teacher was like a father, and the hatred of the person who killed him was absolutely irreconcilable. "Wu Feng." Tian spat out 2 words. It was a very calm voice, but it was like thunder in Xian Wuji and Meng Fanshan's ears, causing their expressions to stiffen. "B****. Meng Fanshan's voice suddenly resounded and echoed in the hall, sounding empty and sorrowful. "Ungrateful bastard." Xian Wuji let out a deep roar. His eyes were bloodshot, and his face was so gloomy that it was dripping water. Obviously, he was extremely furious. Wu Feng was Hua Yuan's disciple, but he had committed the crime of killing his own master. This was a crime that the heavens could not tolerate. After a long time, when Meng Fanshan and Xian Wuji had calmed down, Tian told them everything that had happened in the Barren Sky City. Ling Xian Pavilion. It's the Ling Xian Pavilion again. Meng Fanshan became extremely agitated after he heard that. He roared furiously. The Alchemist Guild and the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion are irreconcilable enemies. The pavilion master of the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion, Nether Ghost, helped Wu Feng steal the 5 poison scripture from Hua Yuan, helped Wu Feng recover his Yuan meridians, and even provided him with a baby to refine the 5 poison blood infant. Clearly, he played an extremely dishonorable role in Hua Yuan's death. Barren Sky City. After listening to Tian's narration, Xian Wuji's expression was somewhat infatuated. He said in a daze, "I didn't expect that big brother Hua really built a city in the desolate heaven ancient desert." It turned out that Hua Yuan and Xian Wuji had an agreement. After the 2 of them left the Alchemist Guild, they would go to a remote place and build a city of their own. They would be isolated from the world and live a peaceful life. Unfortunately, the desolate Sky City had just been built when Hua Yuan died. It was truly a pity. Teacher's divine sense is in the spiritual dragon ring. I wonder what he left behind. Meng Fanshan suddenly said with a slightly agitated expression. "I'll take my leave." Compared to Meng Fanshan and Xian Wuji, Tian was an outsider after all. It was not appropriate for him to stay and watch Hua Yuan's last words. "Elder Tian," Meng Fanshan called out to him at this time, "You're the person that teacher told me to stay before he died. You can stay." Tian thought for a moment and nodded slightly. He could faintly feel that the spiritual dragon ring was not an ordinary spatial ring. The little dragon on it was vivid and lifelike, as if it was alive. There was a strong dragon chi circulating around it, and there was also a sealing aura on it. Tian felt that he had seen the little dragon on the spiritual dragon ring somewhere before, but he couldn't remember where. Meng Fanshen took out the spiritual dragon ring and inserted a strand of his divine sense into it. The ring sensed something, and a white light surged out, condensing into an illusory human figure in the air. It was Hui Yuan's figure. "Teacher." Meng Fanshen was moved and knelt in front of Hui Yuan. Hui Yuan had a faint smile on his face. He raised his hand slightly and signaled for Meng Fanshen to stand up. "Fanshen, get up." "Yes." Meng Fanshen stood up respectfully, his eyes filled with tears. The illusory figure in front of him was the last strand of Hui Yuan's divine sense, and it would disappear very soon. This was the last time he saw his teacher's face, so how could he not be sad? "Brother Xian, I didn't expect you to be here too." Hui Yuan was slightly moved when he saw Xian Wuji. He was very happy. "Big brother Hua." Xian Wuji cried sorrowfully, tears rolling down his face silently. The two of them had known each other for hundreds of years. They weren't brothers, but they were closer than brothers. Hui Yuan nodded slightly. He knew that he couldn't exist for too long, so he made a long story short. "Brother Xian, I hope you can go to the Barren Sky City and replace me as the city lord. How can I not follow Big Brother's order?" Xian Wuji's voice was choked with emotions. Hui Yuan smiled and looked at Meng Fanshen. "Fanshen, I regret not being able to get rid of that evil disciple of mine, Wu Feng. I have always believed that I have a clear conscience, but I was biased in dealing with Wu Feng's matter. My momentary benevolence back then led to a huge disaster. I have to bear half of the responsibility for what Wu Feng did." Hui Yuan's expression turned solemn as he spoke to this point. He almost couldn't continue. "Teacher." Meng Fanshen was moved and said in a sorrowful tone, "I am Wu Feng's senior brother. I am also responsible for his mistakes. Don't worry, teacher. I will definitely kill Wu Feng and clean up the sect." Hui Yuan took a deep breath and nodded slightly. "Fanshen, with your guarantee, I will be happy in the underworld." After saying these words, Hui Yuan's gaze finally fell on Tian, a slightly strange expression on his face. "Elder Hua, if you have something to say, please say it." Tian bowed and said after seeing Hui Yuan's expression. Hui Yuan seemed to hesitate for a while, but he still said, "You have dragon chi on you. I never had the chance to ask you about it. I want to ask now, but I don't have the chance anymore. I can feel that you are the master that the spirit dragon ring has been looking for. I wanted to ask Fanshen to give the spirit dragon ring to you, but since you are here, I will give it to you personally." After saying this, the spirit dragon ring floated in front of Tian. "This." Tian's eyes trembled slightly. He was a little confused and didn't know what was going on. However, Hui Yuan's consciousness had already dimmed. The last trace of a smile disappeared, and the consciousness completely disappeared from space. "You are the master of the spirit dragon ring." After Hui Yuan's consciousness completely disappeared, Xian Wuji and Meng Fanshen were also shocked and said at the same time. Tian smiled bitterly and shook his head. "I don't know what is going on either." Chapter 598. When Xian Wuji and Meng Fanshen saw the sudden change in Tian's expression, they cried out in surprise. At the same time, they asked, "Elder Tian, what did you remember?" Tian's expression stiffened for a few seconds. After a while, he recovered and said with a faint smile, "I remember where I saw the little dragon on this ring." After he finished speaking, a ball of green liquid gushed out from Tian's palm. Instantly, a wave of pure dragon chi was released and filled the entire hall. "What a powerful dragon chi!" Xian Wuji cried out in surprise. He looked at the green liquid on Tian's palm with a shocked expression. "Elder Tian, what is this thing?" Meng Fanshen was also shocked. Her gaze focused on the green liquid. Tian raised the corner of his mouth slightly, but did not speak. The green liquid in his palm circulated in the air and turned into a little dark green dragon. The little dark green dragon was only half a meter long, but it was extremely real. Dragon horns, dragon whiskers, dragon eyes, dragon head, dragon scales, dragon claws, dragon tail, every part of the dragon could be seen clearly. This was a real dragon. Although the little dark green dragon's body was a little exquisite, the dragon chi around its body was extremely rich and intimidating. This little dark green dragon was given to Nyetian by Queen Medusa when he was leaving the chaotic abyss. It allowed him to enter the chaotic abyss at any time. When the little dark green dragon appeared, it caused the dragon scale energy in Nyetian's body to become active. This made him believe that the little dark green dragon was closely related to the dragon spring vein he was looking for. However, Queen Medusa was not willing to tell him where the little dark green dragon came from. Originally, Nyetian wanted to ask Dragon Soul Emperor Shi about this matter when he returned to Heaven Luo City. However, he did not have the opportunity to go back to Heaven Luo City, so this matter was temporarily put aside. Who would have thought that he would find the spiritual dragon ring? And the little dragon carved on the exquisite ring was exactly the same as the little dark green dragon. This, Xian Wuji and Meng Fanshen looked at the little dark green dragon in the sky. For a moment, they were stunned and speechless. Nyetian's divine sense moved, and the little dark green dragon's body moved, circling around the spirit dragon ring, and its body actually became much smaller. It swam one more time and became smaller again. After a few laps, the little dark green dragon turned into a pocket-sized one. It was almost the same size as the little dragon carved on the spirit dragon ring. Pooh! The little dark green dragon moved its body and directly entered the spirit dragon ring. The little dragon sculpture on the ring immediately lit up and flickered with a faint green light. What? Nyetian was shocked by the scene in front of him. He opened his mouth wide, but didn't know what to say. Xian Wuji and Meng Fanshen were even more surprised. They looked at Nyetian blankly, thinking that he was the one controlling everything. What they didn't know was that Nyetian didn't even know what was going on. Suppressing the shock in his heart, Nyetian sent his divine sense into the spirit dragon ring. He was surprised to find that he could clearly sense the powerful seal within it. Layers upon layers of complicated and enormous sealing symbols covered the spirit dragon ring, giving him an extremely shocking feeling. Nyetian had seen many seal runes in his previous life, but it was the first time he saw such a powerful and complex seal like the one in the spirit dragon ring. He could feel that even the demon swallowing heaven seal of the netherworld demon emperor Qi Wutian or the 3,000 seals of the celestial and demon were not as powerful as the seal in the spirit dragon ring. The demon swallowing heaven seal and the 3,000 seals of the celestial and demon were the 10 most powerful seals. What level is the seal in this spirit dragon ring? How could it be so powerful? Nyetian's small face was filled with astonishment. The power inside the spirit dragon ring gave him a boundless feeling. It seemed that only the star totem inside the star stone could be compared to the spirit dragon ring. After a long time, Nyetian finally calmed down. He looked at Meng Fanshen and asked, "Leader Meng, do you know where Senior Hua got the spirit dragon ring?" Meng Fanshen was stunned. Then, she shook her head to show that she didn't know. Then, Nyetian looked at Xian Wuji. The latter also showed a confused expression. What a pity! Nyetian was annoyed. Due to the lack of time, he didn't ask where the spirit dragon ring came from. Now, it would be difficult to find out. When Xian Wuji saw Nyetian's reaction, he could not help but frown and ask, "Elder Nyetian, what is going on? What was that little dark green dragon just now?" Meng Fanshen looked at Nyetian with the same confusion. Nyetian shook his head with a bitter smile. He didn't hide anything and said honestly, "I got the green dragon liquid by chance in the chaotic abyss. It's probably because I have it that Senior Hua thinks I am the owner of the spirit dragon ring." This, Xian Wuji and Meng Fanshen looked at each other speechlessly when they heard Nyetian's words. Meng Fanshen was silent for a while and said, "The spirit dragon ring is Master's favorite item. He always carries it with him. He once told me that the spirit dragon ring hides a shocking secret. Unfortunately, he can't unlock it in his life. Elder Nyetian got the spirit dragon ring, and I hope you can fulfill Master's lifelong wish." "Yes, Exine Wuji nodded and said, "Regardless, Brother Hua already gave you the Spirit Dragon Ring. You're the owner of the Spirit Dragon Ring. If the Spirit Dragon Ring hides a secret, I believe you can unlock it." Nye Tian smiled helplessly. He had to be the owner of the Spirit Dragon Ring, even if he didn't want to. Nye Tian examined the Spirit Dragon Ring once again, and discovered that a small emerald dragon was swimming slowly within the enormous seal. Like a small fish swimming on a boundless lake, it stirred up slight ripples, and the enormous seal seemed to be on the verge of breaking. "It's just a little dragon. Even if you swim for 10,000 years, I'm afraid you won't be able to break the seal." Nye Tian smiled bitterly and put away the Spirit Dragon Ring without caring about him. Exine Wuji suddenly said, "Fanshun, Nye Tian, Brother Hua asked me to be the Forsaken Heaven City Lord. I will leave now." Exine Wuji came to the Sumeru spiritual capital to see the Sumeru pageant. However, since he was entrusted by Hua Yuan, he didn't dare to delay and prepared to go to the Forsaken Heaven City immediately. "Yes." Meng Fanshun nodded and said, "Uncle Exine, be careful. If I have time, I will definitely visit the Forsaken Heaven City." Nye Tian also nodded and told Exine Wuji the location of the Forsaken Heaven City. With the latter's ability, he should be able to find it easily. Exine Wuji didn't stay and left immediately. "Uncle Exine, I don't know when we will see each other again." Meng Fanshun looked at Exine Wuji's disappearing figure and felt slightly sad. Nye Tian smiled faintly. Then he thought of something and said, "President Meng, I need some medicinal ingredients. Do you have them in the guild?" "Elder Nye, please tell us. As long as the guild has them, you can take them." Meng Fanshun said straightforwardly. "Purple spirit fruit, heavenly thorn crow, heavenly gate holly grass, tiger tail flower, and amethyst orchid." When Nye Tian said these 5 medicinal ingredients, Meng Fanshun was shocked. It was because these 5 ingredients were all 6th-level medicinal ingredients and were very valuable. Nye Tian didn't need these ingredients for himself, but for the treatment of the 5-poison blood infant. On the way to the Sumeru spiritual capital, Nye Tian carefully read through the 5-poison scripture. He was sure that these few ingredients might be able to restrain the 5-poison chi. "President Meng, if the guild has these ingredients, I will not take them for free. I am willing to buy them at high price," Nye Tian said directly when he saw Meng Fanshun's reaction. "Elder Nye, you misunderstand." Meng Fanshun waved her hand and said, "The guild's medicine pavilion has the first 4 ingredients you mentioned. However, we don't have the amethyst orchid." "This is difficult." Nye Tian frowned. The amethyst orchid was the core ingredient and must have it. Chapter 599. Nye Tian showed a troubled expression. Without the redbud flowing orchid, the 5-poison blood infant might not survive more than 5 days. After leaving the 5-poison pool, the 5-poison blood infant could survive for half a month at most. The 5-poison blood infant would be away from Desolate Heaven City for about 10 days. Hence, Nye Tian only had 5 days left. Xiao Chen needed to find a way to restrain the 5-poison chi within 5 days. The redbud flowing orchid was the core of the 5 herbs, so it was essential. "Elder Nye, can you tell me what you need these herbs for?" Meng Fanshun asked when he saw Nye Tian's troubled expression, as if he was hesitating about something. Originally, Nye Tian did not want to tell Meng Fanshun about the 5-poison blood infant. However, since Meng Fanshun asked, he did not want to hide it. Hence, he told the truth. Finally, he said, "I want this 5-poison blood infant to live. Furthermore, I want it to live like a normal person. The 5 herbs earlier can restrain the 5-poison chi. The redbud flowing orchid is essential." After Meng Fanshun heard Nye Tian's explanation, his expression turned slightly stiff. He had not expected Nye Tian to have a 5-poison blood infant. Although Meng Fanshun did not know what the 5-poison blood infant looked like, based on Nye Tian's explanation, it was something horrifying. There was one more thing that Nye Tian did not tell Meng Fanshun. He already controlled Wu Feng. Nye Tian did not kill Wu Feng because he wanted to use him to uncover the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion's plot. Once he found out the Ling Xian Heaven Pavilion's true goal, Wu Feng would lose his value. Then, Nie Tian would not hesitate to kill him. Nie Tian would not show mercy to people like Wu Feng. Elder Nie Tian, can I take a look at the 5-poison blood infant? Meng Fanchen asked after hesitating for a long time. Sure. Nie Tian saw that Meng Fanchen seemed to have something to say, but did not say it. The two did not delay, leaving the Alchemist Association and heading for Gu Yi's residence. After a while, Nie Tian and Meng Fanchen arrived at the Gu residence. The guards of the Gu residence were all Martial Pill Palace guards. Naturally, they recognized Meng Fanchen and Nie Tian, so they let them pass. Gu Yi and the others were in the Gu residence's Great Hall. When they saw Nie Tian and Meng Fanchen from afar, they came out to welcome them. Brother Nie, you have been in Tranquil City for such a long time. Old brother was afraid that something might have happened to you. Gu Yi was very happy to see Nie Tian, and he was filled with cordiality. Nie Tian faintly smiled and said, I've made Big Brother Gu worry. Everyone chatted and laughed as they entered the main hall and took their seats. President Meng, I just saw Temple Master Xian. Did something happen? Yang Kai asked when he saw Meng Fanchen's solemn expression. Meng Fanchen nodded and briefly explained what had happened to Hui Yuan. He didn't mention Wu Feng. After all, his sect was unfortunate, and it wasn't good to let too many people know about it. Gu Yi, Yang Kai, Yi Linyun, and the others all knew Hui Yuan and couldn't help feeling a bit sad. Meng Fanchen didn't say anything more. He immediately looked at Nie Tian. Nie Tian nodded and said to Qiu Shan, Qiu Shan, open the thing on your back. Qiu Shan had already returned to the Gu residence a long time ago. Mo Tai and Mo Rushi had already settled down. They were very safe in the Gu residence. Qiu Shan had been carrying the 5-poison coffin on his back all this time. He covered it with an azure cloth to prevent others from seeing it. Qiu Shan agreed and lifted the azure cloth. The 5-poison coffin appeared before everyone. Although Gu Yi and the others had seen something on Qiu Shan's back that was emitting a faint fluctuation of poison gas, they didn't pay much attention to it. However, when they saw that it was a coffin, they couldn't help but be horrified. Open it, Nie Tian said to Qiu Shan after scanning everyone with his gaze. Qiu Shan no longer held back. He took a deep breath and directly opened the 5-poison coffin. The instant the coffin was opened, the 5-poison blood infant let out a cry of pleasant surprise. Its huge eyes suddenly opened. Everyone sucked in a cold breath when they saw the thing in the coffin. Their expressions froze, and they were horrified. The 5-poison blood infant was only the size of baby. It looked like a baby, but it looked very strange. Its limbs were like sharp claws, its head was huge, and its ears were pointy. Its entire body was covered in black patterns, giving off a very evil feeling. Its entire body was a bloody mess. There wasn't a single piece of skin on its body that was intact. It looked very bloody. So this is the 5-poison blood infant. Meng Fanchen exclaimed in astonishment after a full 10 seconds had passed. His expression relaxed a little. Yes. Nie Tian nodded. Just as everyone was observing the 5-poison blood infant, its huge eyes flickered as if it was observing everyone. It wanted to move its limbs, but its entire body was restrained by the sword intent, so it couldn't move. Then it started crying. Its voice was no different from that of an ordinary baby, but it made everyone feel endless misery. Wu Feng, Meng Fanchen shouted the name word by word. His body trembled as he roared furiously, Bastard! The others had the same sorrowful expression, suppressing their anger. Whoever created the 5-poison blood infant was worse than a pig or a dog. Qiu Shan. Nie Tian glanced at Qiu Shan, who immediately closed the 5-poison coffin. After a long time, the atmosphere in the hall returned to normal. Nie Tian explained the situation of the 5-poison blood infant and emphasized in the end, the red bud orchid is the core of the 5 herbs. It's indispensable. If anyone has it or knows where it can be found, you must tell me. I must get it. Back at the Alchemist Guild, Meng Fanchen seemed to know where the redbud orchid was, but he didn't want to say it. Elder Nya, if we don't have a redbud orchid, what will happen to the 5-poison blood infant? Meng Fanshun asked with a frown. It won't live for more than 5 days, Nie Tian answered honestly. 5 days. Meng Fan Chen's expression became cautious. After thinking for a long time, he finally said, there's a place that might have the redbud orchid. Where? Nie Tian blurted out. No matter where it was, he must get it. President Meng, you can't be talking about. Gu Yi and Yang Kai thought of something at the same time and were stunned. Their expressions became tense. Meng Fanchen nodded and said 2 words, the black market. The black market? Nie Tian's eyes narrowed, and he asked in surprise. Sumi's spirit capital also has a black market? The black market. Nie Tian was no stranger to this place. He had been to Blue Cloud City's black market and met Gu Yi there. But he didn't expect that Sumi's spirit capital also had a black market. Generally speaking, black markets were places that were not controlled by orthodox forces. They were usually forbidden places for ordinary people. For example, Blue Cloud City's black market. Even the Blue Cloud Emperor had to tuck his tail between his legs. Meng Fanchen nodded and said, the black market is a huge, unknown organization. It exists in every city in the 4 domains. It is said that all black markets are controlled by one force. As for who this force is, no one knows. Chapter 600. Seeing Nie Tian stand up, Meng Fanchen and the rest stood up as well. Their eyes were filled with shock and worry. The black market was a forbidden area in the Shumi spirit capital. Once entered, even if Nie Tian was a red-robed elder, it would be useless. The black market was not under the control of the Alchemist Guild or the 4 great families. Elder Nie, it's too dangerous for you to go to the black market alone. I'll send someone to go with you. Meng Fanchen didn't try to persuade Nie Tian. Nie Tian wasn't the kind of person who could be persuaded. Once he decided on something, he wouldn't change his mind. Even if the black market was a mountain of daggers, a sea of fire, and a bottomless abyss, he had to go. I'll go with Mr. Nie. Just as Meng Fanchen finished his sentence, Yi Linyan said, don't worry, old Meng. I'll definitely ensure Mr. Nie's safety. Meng Fanchen nodded. With Yi Linyan by Nie Tian's side, he was much more at ease. All right, let's go. Nie Tian nodded to Yi Linyan and prepared to leave. Big brother Nie Tian. Just as Nie Tian and the rest walked out of the hall, a clear voice rang out. Nie Yuro ran over. 9th sister. Nie Tian caressed Nie Yuro's delicate, jade-like face, a happy smile appearing at the corner of his mouth as he teased, you've grown quite a bit taller and fatter. Big brother Nie Tian, you're going out again? Seeing that Nie Tian was about to leave, Nie Yuro had an unhappy expression on her face, her little mouth pouting. Nie Tian said helplessly, I have some matters to attend to. I'll be back soon. All right. Nie Yuro nodded obediently and said seriously, then when Big Brother Nie Tian comes back, you must play with Roer? Roer hasn't been with Big Brother Nie Tian for a long time. Nie Tian nodded helplessly. Then promise. Nie Yuro smiled slyly. I promise. Nie Tian pinched the little girl's cheek and nodded. The crowd burst into laughter when they saw this. A moment later, Nie Tian and Yi Linyan arrived at Sumi's spirit capital's Wu City. Wu City, every big city had it, and Sumi's spirit capital was no exception. Looking at the bustling market in front of him, Nie Tian couldn't help but sigh. The martial market in Sumi's spirit city is indeed different. The market in front of him was very big, and it was crowded with people. As far as the eye could see, there was a dense mass of people. However, this place was very quiet. There wasn't much noise, and it seemed to be orderly. Nie Tian arrived at the entrance of the martial market, paid the entrance fee, and directly entered. Sumi Ling City's martial market was the same as normal martial markets. It was divided into 5 regions: the medicine market, the soldier market, the beast market, the slave market, and the auction house. Nie Tian and Elder Yi first walked around the medicine market and auction house, hoping to try their luck. Unfortunately, their luck was not good, and they did not find the redbud flowing orchid. Nie Tian and Elder Yi walked around the Wu City and Wu City to try their luck. Unfortunately, they were not lucky and did not find the redbud flowing orchid. Looks like we can only go to the black market. Nie Tian sighed helplessly and prepared to go to the black market. Passing through a dark tunnel, Nyetian and Elder Yi came to a tall black wall. And Nyetian was slightly startled because in front of him was a dead end. The black wall blocked the way. The Wu City staff smiled and took out a token. He shouted at the black wall, "We have a customer." Boom. A few seconds later, the black wall shook and automatically separated. A narrow passage appeared, allowing only one person to pass through. Nyetian took a look and could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. In front of him was a passage about 100 meters long. This undoubtedly meant that the black wall was 100 meters thick. It was unbelievable. The black wall seemed to be made of a special material and looked even harder than black iron. Nyetian estimated that even a heavenly Emperor Realm Master might not be able to break through the black wall. "Please." The Wu City staff smiled strangely. He did not want to tip and directly turned to leave. Nyetian and Elder Yi looked at each other and walked into the passage without hesitation. Entering the passage, Nyetian immediately felt a suffocating pressure. It turned out that this passage was actually a 10,000 times gravity array. Martial artists below the true element realm could not pass through the black wall. The passage was only 100 meters long. Nyetian and Elder Yi had to walk for several minutes before they came out. Walking out of the passage, Nyetian let out a long breath, finally feeling a lot more relaxed. "Token." Just as they stood still, two black armor guards walked over and said indifferently. Nyetian's divine sense swept over the black armored guards, and he could not help but be surprised. They were actually at the true element 5th level. These two were obviously ordinary guards, but they were actually at the true element 5th level. The security of this black market was very strict, no less than that of the Alchemist Guild. "The two of you, this is our first time coming to the black market, so there are some rules that we don't understand. May I ask what kind of token you're talking about?" Nyetian said while taking out several spirit nuclei, all of which were rank 4 spirit nuclei and were very valuable. The two black armor guards saw that Nyetian was very tactful, so they smiled and took the spirit nuclei and said, "Come with us." Under the guidance of the two black armor guards, Nyetian and Elder Yi came to a seemingly dilapidated old building. After entering, under the guidance of the black armor guards, they spent a lot of money and finally obtained the so-called token. Nyetian looked at the token in his hand and almost went crazy. It was actually a very ordinary black iron, square in shape with nothing on it. This piece of scrap iron cost me 1,000,000 low-grade spirit stones. Fuck. Nyetian cursed in his heart, venting his dissatisfaction. What you are holding in your hands is a black iron token. It allows you to freely enter and exit the ordinary places of the black market. One of the black armored guards casually said, "Freely enter and exit ordinary places?" Nyetian was surprised. His complexion turned ugly, but he still had to suppress the anger in his heart and asked, "If I want to enter the black market to auction medicinal herbs, what kind of token do I need?" "You want to buy medicinal herbs?" The black armor guard was slightly surprised. His eyes became suspicious, and he stiffly said, "The medicinal herbs that are being auctioned are all in the Azura auction house. If you want to go there, you need at least a purple gold token." "How do I get a purple gold token?" Nyetian hurriedly asked. The black armored guard frowned and indifferently said, "You can't get a purple gold token. You need someone from the black market to be your guarantor. Only then can you get a purple gold token." This, Nyetian was a bit embarrassed and said, "Are you willing to be my guarantor?" With that, Nyetian directly took out a rank 5 spirit nucleus. But the guard didn't even look at it and said coldly, "I don't have the qualifications to be your guarantor." With that, the black armored guard didn't stay any longer and directly left. Nyetian was stunned on the spot, and his brows were deeply wrinkled. "Mr. Nya." Elder Yi called out to Nyetian and looked strangely at the place where the token was issued. Nyetian slightly shook his head, indicating that he couldn't. Of course, he understood what Elder Yi meant, which was to directly rob. If it was any other place, of course he could rob, but in the black market, this kind of action was tantamount to seeking death. Since the black market could exist in a place like Sumi Ling City, it naturally had its scary places and was definitely not a place where one could act wildly. Chapter 601. Nie Tian heard the voice. It was very familiar. He turned around and saw that it was someone he knew. He called out the person's name, Raindrop. The person who suddenly appeared was none other than Rainy Truecass. Follow me. Raindrop was still wearing the faceless mask. She nodded and signaled Nie Tian to follow her. Nie Tian was confused. Why would Raindrop appear in the black market? He seemed to have a high status. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to be his guarantor. But it wasn't the time to think about this. Nie Tian followed her and got the purple gold token. Of course, he paid 10 million yuan gems for it. Where do you want to go? Raindrop frowned and asked coldly. I need some medicinal ingredients, Nie Tian answered. At the same time, he suddenly realized something. Nie Tian guessed that the devil god flower that Raindrop gave him was bought in the black market. The black market was indeed a mysterious place. He should be able to buy some amethyst flowing orchid there. Come with me. Rain hesitated for a moment, but she still said yes. Nie Tian nodded. Under such circumstances, he could only choose to believe in true stratagem. Raindrop brought Nie Tian and the others to a grand auction house. This is the Shura auction house. Be careful when you enter. The black market is different from other places. Here, even if you're a dragon, you'll have to coil up, and if you're a tiger, you'll have to crouch down. Rua Jinsa warned Nie Tian with a cautious tone, which was rare for him. Understood. Nie Tian nodded. Even someone like Raindrop said that. It was enough to prove how dangerous the black market was. I still have some matters to attend to. Goodbye. Rainfall nodded in acknowledgement before turning around to leave. Nie Tian looked at the back of the person who left in a hurry. He couldn't hide the surprise in his eyes. Who was this person? His identity was so mysterious. Rui Qianyu, Bloody Slaughter Palace, Ling Xian Pavilion, the black market. These people and forces were all related to Raindrop. This made his identity even more mysterious. Nie Tian didn't think too much. He could only find out who Raindrop was in the future. The most important thing now was to get the amethyst flowing orchid. With the purple gold token, Nie Tian and Elder Yi entered the auction house. A shop assistant led them to the auction hall on the 3rd floor. The hall was full of people. There was an intense auction going on the stage. Nie Tian ignored them and asked the shop assistant to bring him to the auction house manager. The steward was a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 40s. He was dressed in green and looked neat and tidy, giving off a very capable and experienced feeling. Nie Tian sensed the man's strength. It was level 9 true element. Moreover, when he entered the auction house, he noticed that there were many experts lying in ambush. Among them, there were no less than 5 spirit wheel realm warriors. A small auction house had such strength. The black market was indeed an unfathomable place. Mister, I am the auction house manager, Shun Quan. You want to buy something, right? The middle-aged manager sized up Nie Tian with a pair of shrewd eyes. There was a slight surprise in his eyes, but he concealed it well and smiled faintly. I want to buy a rank 6 medicinal herb, amethyst flowing orchid, Nie Tian said calmly. The corner of Shun Quan's mouth raised slightly. He pondered for a while and said, Amethyst flowing orchid, this kind of medicinal herb, is very rare. Give me 3 days. After 3 days, I guarantee you will get the amethyst flowing orchid. 3 days? Nie Tian was slightly stunned. He said, I don't have that much time. I want to get it immediately. Is there any way? So urgent? Shin Quan's eyes trembled slightly. He immediately laughed. There was undisguised contempt in his eyes. He said, Mister, you may not know, but this kind of express service can only be enjoyed by the distinguished guests of the auction house. And you, how can I become a distinguished guest? Without waiting for Shun Quan to finish speaking, Nie Tian directly interrupted. He really did not have time to chat here. Shun Quan smiled strangely. There was some impatience on his face, but he still said, only those who have auctioned valuable items in this auction house can become a distinguished guest of the auction house. Oh, Nie Tian was slightly stunned. He did not waste any time and directly took out a martial arts scroll. He said, Is this considered a valuable item? This is. Shin Quan was stunned at first. He immediately extended his divine sense over and immediately felt a pure martial intent. It caused his body to tremble and his expression to change greatly. Heaven-ranked martial art! Shun Quan cried out in shock. He directly shouted out the eunuch's movement. His expression immediately froze. After a moment of blankness, it was replaced by passion. Oh my God! It really is a heaven-ranked martial art. Shun Quan screamed madly in his heart. His entire body was no longer in a mess. After a full 10 seconds, Shun Quan finally calmed down a little. The gaze he used to look at Nie Tian immediately changed. It was as if he had seen his own father. He could not hide his flattery. I want to auction this martial art scroll. However, the prerequisite is that I first obtain the redbud flowing orchid. Nie Tian glanced at Shun Quan and said coldly, "No problem, no problem. Absolutely no problem." Shun Quan nodded his head like a rattledrum. He said, "Young master, please wait in the hall. I will arrange for the auction of the redbud flowing orchid. It will be ready soon." As Shun Quan spoke, he ran out eagerly. He was as excited as a jumping monkey. Nie Tian did not care about him and turned to leave. Shun Quan directly arranged a VIP room for Nie Tian to enjoy the highest standard of treatment. In the VIP room, through a strange curtain, Nie Tian could clearly see everything outside. The entire auction hall could be seen at a glance. The auction hall in front of him had a circumference of a few thousand meters. It could accommodate tens of thousands of people. Furthermore, it was extremely luxurious. There was a resplendent golden light everywhere. Just as Nie Tian was carefully observing everything, a few figures slowly walked over. When Nie Tian saw the faces in front of him clearly, his pupils constricted slightly. His entire body emitted a sharp, killing intent. The few people in front of him were very familiar. They were Shangwan Yin and Dragon Fifth, whom Nie Tian had met at the Square Restaurant. Behind these two, there was another face that was particularly eye-catching. It was Wei Yangzi. Wei Yangzi, the murderer of Old Li. When Nie Tian saw this person again, he could not suppress the anger in his heart. Naturally, he released his killing intent. Nie Tian had never expected that he would run into Wei Yangzi here. "Mr. Nie." Elder Yi could not help but call out when he sensed Nie Tian's killing intent. "I'm fine." Nie Tian reacted and withdrew his killing intent. However, the anger in his eyes did not vanish. There's killing intent. At this moment, Shangwan Yin and the others outside sensed something. Their eyes trembled as they looked at the VIP room that Nie Tian was in. However, the curtains of the VIP room were made of a strange black frost satin. The people inside could see outside, but the people outside could not see inside. Shangwan Yin stared at the VIP room for a long time. Even if he was sure that the people inside had ill intentions towards him, he did not dare to barge in. This was the black market. No one was allowed to behave atrociously.